6:32 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting of the Forney ISD Board of Trustees to order. We do have a quorum present, and the meeting has been posted in the matters prescribed by law. I'm going to introduce our secondary and elementary students of the month, and I'm going to ask their principals to do that. Once they introduce those students of the month, we'll have an invocation. Ask you to rise. Mr. Chad Johnson will lead our invocation, and then these students our pledges of allegiance. So at this time, the chair would recognize Ms. Courtney Peck, our North Forney High School principal. She'll introduce our secondary student of the month, and then after that, Ms. Leslie Rader, Crosby Elementary School principal, will announce our elementary student of the month. Ms. Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Board members, Ms. McWilliams, it is an honor to introduce our secondary student of the month tonight. The student I am recognizing tonight is truly a special student. Haley Sakala, come on up, please. Is currently a senior at North Forney High School. She was also a Brown Fair before that. As a Falcon, she has served on the North Forney Choir, the Pride of Falcon Nation Band, and has been a star in our Falcon Theater program for the last 4 years. Many people say that not even Haley knows how talented she truly is. As a matter of fact, Haley was actually selected as Secondary Student of the Month by our admin and counseling team in December. On that day, however, she was auditioning for All-Region Band, and I was very proud of her for going because she advanced the area. One of the cool things that Haley has had the opportunity to do this year is sing the national anthem at AT&T Stadium, as well as at the Texas Ranger Stadium, among other cool places. When asked about Haley, one of her band directors shared, "I love how she can light up a room with her beautiful soprano voice and then fill that room with her bass trombone." Besides all this amazing talent, Haley is also a wonderful student with a kind and humble heart. I just love these children. She exemplifies our campus goal, others before self. She is very active in church, and after graduation, she plans to attend Southwestern Assembly of God University, where she will major in worship arts. I am so very proud to call Haley a North Forney Falcon and to award her this honor of Secondary Student of the Month for Forney ISD.
Ms. Rader, if you would introduce your elementary student of the month, please, ma'am.
All right. Good evening, and thank you, Ms. McWilliams and the school board for allowing Crosby Elementary to showcase one of our many amazing students. Armando Brianas is a 6th grade student that has attended Crosby since 1st grade. He's the son of Armando and Cynthia, and the brother to big sister Brianna at North Forney High School, younger brother Israel at Crosby, and baby brother Ivan. Armando participates in our Safety Patrol program, where he goes above and beyond the call of duty by greeting students and families as they enter each morning. His attitude, compassion, and servant's heart make him an amazing part of our Crosby family, and one that we won't soon forget when he leaves for Brown Middle School next year. I'd like to read a few words that several teachers have shared about Armando. Mrs. Elsner, Armando's language arts teacher, stated that Armando may be the kindest student she has ever had the privilege of teaching. He's constantly asking how he can help. He helps calm down students who are upset or angry. One of our guest teachers even noticed and said that someday he needs to become a life coach. His calm demeanor and everyday smile make teaching him a joy. Armando's 2nd grade teacher, Ms. Colquitt, stated that she has fond memories of his compassion and kindness. He's a hard worker that never gives up, and he lets nothing stand in his way. He's always respectful to his teachers and to other students. He's a true gentleman. Finally, Ms. Flores, Armando's 5th grade science teacher, stated that Armando goes over and above his teachers' and peers' expectations. He gives his best on every task. She stated that it was a blessing to be a part of his story, and she has no doubt that he will accomplish great things in his future. Congratulations, Armando, and thank you for representing Crosby Elementary.
If you'll please rise at this time, Mr. Johnson will lead our invocation, and these students are pledges. Mr. Johnson.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this night that we could come here. Father, we ask as we set about doing the district's business that you would you would join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor of the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state under God, one indivisible.
David, on behalf of the board, it is my honor to present you with this. Board President, it's my honor to present you with this certificate. Parents, you want to photograph?
Everybody? All right, here we go.
Well, once again, I'd like to thank these students of the month and their educators for nominating them. It's always good to start our meetings off with these pledges by our students. Once again, I welcome you to the Forney ISD Board of Trustees. I hope that you find our meeting insightful and that you'll take the information gained here tonight to the rest of our stakeholders. Moving on to item 4. Moving on to item 5 is recognition. Item A is to recognize the Forney ISD Communications for receiving Texas School Public Relations Awards. At this time, the chair would recognize Ms. Kimberly Morsack, Chief of Information and Innovation Services. Ms. Morsack.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Ms. McWilliams, Board. It's my pleasure to announce 2 winners from the Texas School Public Relations Association Annual Conference. The Texas School Public Relations Association is a nonprofit professional organization dedicated to promoting public schools through effective communication. The organization held its annual conference in February, and award winners were announced for work completed during the 2016-2017 school year. We are very fortunate to have 2 award winners. Mr. Larry Coker, Director of Communications, is a Bronze Medal Award winner. Oh, I'm having a hard time speaking tonight. For published news or feature article. That article was Parents in Forney ISD Stay in Touch with Their Child's Education Through Skyward and Canvas in the under 10,000 student category. So, Mr. Coker, you want to come on up? The second award winner, he didn't want to, so. The second award winner is Mr. Wesley Benjamin. Mr. Benjamin won the Gold Medal Award and Best in Category for the video How We Learn. If you'll recall, that is our whiteboard video that Wes wrote and produced and edited and directed. And that was in the under 10,000 student category for training and instructional video. And then Mr. Benjamin also was the Crystal Award winner for Video Portfolio, which is the highest award presented at the conference. And he won that for a visual journey of education in Forney ISD. And that was for any school district, no matter the size. So Wes, if you want to come on forward, please help me congratulate these 2 gentlemen.
Feels different being on that side. Congratulations.
Oh. I made them come do it, so they're gonna make me do it. Awesome.
Great, congratulations.
On behalf of the board, I'd just like to thank you, Larry, as our communications director, all the articles and Facebook and websites and Education Foundation and all the litany of other things that you do. And Professor, great job. Wesley, you've done us a great job and worn a lot of hats at Forney ISD. And certainly your creative abilities are beyond the imagination in a lot of times. So and that and click your icon for our Forney Focus. What an extraordinary job. So thank you both gentlemen for what you guys do for Forney ISD. Thank you. Mr. Williams, you want to say anything?
I just also want to say thank you. I think you guys have done a wonderful job of expressing to our public how we feel about our kids and the innovative things that we're doing in our district, and it's because of your creativity that we have been so successful with that. And I'm so proud of these guys. They were up against school districts that had departments full of people that do this sort of thing and won this award. So kudos to you, both of you. Thank you again.
Great job. Let's give them another round of applause. Moving on to item 6 is student recognition. Under 6A is recognized high school students who were selected to the UIL Academic All-State Swim Team. This time the chair would recognize Mr. Neil Weaver, our athletic director, who will recognize these coaches as well as these athletes. Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Bell, Superintendent McWilliams, and members of the board. It is always a distinct pleasure of mine to recognize from among our thousands of outstanding student athletes in Forney ISD a number of our most distinguished. In this case, this is an encore performance of sorts. Our swimming team has been recognized before for their very first berth in the swimming and diving state tournament competition this year. In this case, they're back again with students who were recognized as academic all-state and for the first time an academic all-American from the swimming and diving program. I'd like to welcome Coach Jason Thompson, our head swim and dive coach for Forney ISD, both for North Forney and Forney High School. And I'd ask Mrs. Thompson to come up with him. As I've said before, she is a de facto assistant coach, certainly very, very involved in the program with him.
Say, Coach.
Thank you, Coach Weaver, Ms. McWilliams, board. Yeah, I was here last month. It doesn't get any easier, by the way. The more times you're up here, you guys are still intimidating. Yeah, it's these kids work really hard in the pool and out of the pool. You'll recognize one of them. I have a list. You'll recognize one of them as being here last month with the state qualifiers. He's actually here twice today. As our very first academic All-American, Benjamin Santabanez. Ben, you want to come up? Ben was on, this was through the National Interscholastic Swim Coaches Association, also sponsored by Speedo. So you get a piece of paper, nothing else. Ben also is recognized by the Texas State High School Coaches Association as a first team academic all-state.
Wow, awesome.
All right, next we have second team academic all-state, Leah Cuban. Could not be here tonight. She had her wisdom teeth pulled out today. And then we have our next one also that could not be here, Caden LeBounty. She was unable to get off of work. Next, second team, academic All-State, Hope Carter. Second team, academic All-State, Robbie Clark. Honorable mention, academic All-State, Kelsey Singletary, who she's under the weather, so she's not here today. But we do have with us Hashim Van Molden. And then also, Hashim also went to state. He was a diver. And then also, honorable mention, academic All-State, Rusty Clark. And yes, Rusty and Robbie are twins.
Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you.
You bet.
Parents and family, we'd love to invite you up for a photograph if you'd like to join us, please.
Well, outstanding. That's our first time we've had an All-American in the swim team, right?
Awesome.
So, especially academic All-American. So it's always great to recognize these students that are not only great athletes, but they are outstanding in the classroom. At the end of the day, that's what will propel them on to college, and it's the most opportunity for their scholarships. Moving on to item 6B. 6B is to recognize 40 high school students who qualified for the Girls State Powerlifting Competition. Once again, I would recognize Mr. Neil Weaver, our athletic director. Mr. Weaver.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. One thing I might note about our swimming and diving program and also about the program that's represented here, powerlifting, is these students are pretty dedicated. They're students that typically practice at 6 o'clock in the morning, either on campus or away from campus. So it takes an extreme dedication, not only to be a student athlete, but as Mr. Bell pointed out, to be a great student as well. These two students will be recognized by Coach Zach Naharro from Forney High School, our head powerlifting coach. Also earned a berth at the state level competition for powerlifting.
Thank you, Board, Ms. McWilliams. Before tonight, I'd just like to recognize these hardworking students. We're very fortunate to inherit a very deep tradition in powerlifting at Forney High School, especially in the girls' side. These young ladies certainly have continued that legacy on. Like Coach just mentioned, they also work extremely hard. They show up in the mornings, they show up in the after school. They are both excellent students and take care of their grades. We would like to call up to recognize Katie Williams and Sadie Hewitt. Katie is a three-time qualifier at the state powerlifting meet, so she's done this before. She's a seasoned veteran. She was able to medal in this year's meet. She was able to overcome and persevere some difficulties at the state meet. A lot of young ladies might not have been able to have handled it. She, like the veteran that she is, she really handled and overcome a lot of adversity to finish very strong and finish her powerlifting career strong. Sadie was also at the state meet. She was also able to compete. She was able to medal in her first trip to to the state meet. She's also, of course, a vital member of the softball team. So they're still in competition this week. So again, if you would, please, let's give these ladies a round of applause.
Thanks, and once again, family members, we'd love for you to join us for a picture.
Going to move past the recess and move right into item number 8, which is audience participation. Nobody has asked to address the board tonight, correct, Mr. Coker? Larry? Nobody asked us to address the board? Thank you. Moving on to item 9 is reports. Item 9A is the monthly financial report. This time the chair would recognize Mr. John Chase, our CFO. Mr. Chase.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. The monthly financial report for the month ended February 28, 2018. It was included in your board packet on pages 6 through 8. Highlights of the report are the collection of $9 million, $9.1 million in revenue for the month, and $6.4 million of expenditures. Year-to-date revenue collected is $59.3 million, or 76% of the amount estimated, and year-to-date expenditures is $51.6 million, or 63% of the amount estimated. Now, both these percentages are in line with what we have seen in prior years, and so we're pretty much right on target with our expenses and our revenues for this report period. Moving on to the debt service report, we have $4 million of revenue collected for the month and $5 million of expenditures. And as the board is aware, we have two times per year that we have major cash outflows in the debt service account. In February, that's when we make our interest payments, and that's what that $5 million represents. And then in August, we'll have another large one that will be principal and interest at that point. So year-to-date revenue recognized is $19 million, or 99% of the amount estimated, and then year-to-date expenditures is $17.4 million, or right at 100% of the amount appropriated. Finally, the cash and investment balances on hand at the end of February was $58.6 million. Again, we have large cash on hand at this point. Our property taxes are pretty much collected for the year because they go delinquent after January 31st, and so we'll have large cash balances. It's no surprise that we'd have this on hand in February. We'll start drawing these cash balances down from this point all the way through the month of August to going into the next fiscal year. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer at this time.
Any questions concerning the monthly financial report? All right. Thank you, Mr. Chase. Moving on to item 9B is a detailed summary of finance update, near final released. Once again, the chair would recognize Mr. John Chase, our CFO.
Again, the summaries of finances, it's included on pages 10 through 13 in your board packet. And just to kind of rehearse what that is that's a report that TEA issues on the amount of state funding that each school district will either receive as far as cash flow payments. It's the state's estimate, or what they use to base their budget on. That's in the LPE column, or the legislative planning estimate column. The DPE column is the district planning estimate, and they update this throughout the year to account for updated estimates and property values, and really this time of year is for the students and average daily attendance. We submit data to them in the fall in the PEAMS data submission, and they use this information to determine what they figure our average daily attendance will be at the end of the fiscal year. So they released this update in the month of March, and that's what we're here to discuss tonight. Just starting off with on the front, first page of the report, as I said, on the LPE side, they base their cash flow payments to us on 9,640 students. They're estimating that we'll actually have 9,768. Our internal estimates are slightly lower than that, about 50 students, but pretty much what they're estimating for us in that DPE column is pretty much what we will have by the end of the fiscal year. So, moving on to the property value section, I just bring this part of the report up just to point out. I know the board has been made aware of this in past meetings that we've had in our budget workshops and what have you, but in tier one of the funding formula, the local share that we pay as our share of the revenue that's generated in that funding formula is based on the prior tax year's property values. And so, as you can see, the $3.1 billion that they're thinking that we're levying a tax on, that they're using to determine our local share is actually about a little more than $400 million less than what we actually are collecting the tax on, which translates in the fact that we're collecting about $4.7 million more this year than the state believes that we will collect in that funding formula. So there's that lag effect in the formula that we've talked about. So, and we used that $4.7 million this year. As you know, we did some projects, updated our fire panels and some door security. We're doing a roofing project at Claiborne Elementary and some other things. And we had a budget surplus at the beginning of the year of about $1 million. And so, just point that out is that we have about $4.7 million more in revenue that we actually collect this year than if property values were actually flat, we wouldn't actually get. So we wouldn't want to budget that for pay raises and things like that that's reoccurring, and we didn't. Just moving on to the next section of the report, in lines 47 through 52, basically just shows you what they're projecting that we'll earn. It's about $37.2 million in revenue for our general operating fund, and another $1.3 million for help us make our debt service payments for the year, for a total revenue estimate of about $38.5 million. On the last page of the report, and this pretty much will tell you what the state is projecting that we'd be over or underpaid for the year. And at this time, we're projecting that we'll be underpaid $1.8 million. That cash will not come to the district until September. And as we discussed last fiscal year, we had an underpayment of about, I believe it was $840,000, I believe. We did not get that cash until September. We didn't actually get to include that in our revenue estimate on the fund financial statements, and the same will be true for this year. And so just to summarize, they're projecting that we'll have a $1.8 million underpayment. Our internal estimates also indicate we'll have an underpayment of about $1.9 million, so it's pretty close to what they're estimating. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the board concerning the update on the detailed summary of finance, near final released? All right. Thank you, Mr. Chase. Moving on to item 9C is the Forney Focus update. This time the chair recognizes Dr. Justin Terry, our deputy superintendent. Dr. Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Board, Ms. McWilliams, excited to come to you tonight again for our quarterly update on our Forney Focus 2.0 vision now and our 6 board goals. We started a little bit of a new trend with you in January that shortened down the presentation and got great response to that. So we tried to replicate that again, and we got a short video to show you some of the great things happening in Forney and some of the progress we've made towards our 6 board goals. I will apologize ahead of time for the wonderful acting, but some of us are not gifted in that area. So let me go ahead and show you this, and then we'll take any questions that you may have about any of the programs or new upcoming things in Forney ISD. If I can get the video started. Here we go.
Today we are back with a quarterly update on our Forney Focus 2.0 plan for the future. But first, let's start off with a couple of announcements.
As many of you know, I have announced my retirement from education effective June 30th of this school year. I'm very excited that our school board has chosen Dr. Justin Terry as the new superintendent of schools for Forney ISD. I look forward to watching the new heights that Dr. Terry will take our district to, and I feel confident that he is the perfect choice for Forney ISD.
We're so proud to share that Susie McWilliams was just named the Citizen of the Year this year for Forney. Our community did a great job of choosing an excellent person with a great heart that for kids in our community, and we're so proud of Susie and the work she's done here.
As you will see, a lot has happened over the last 3 months. The purpose of this update is to show our progress as we work towards our Forney Focus 2.0 plan for the future, as well as our 6 board goals. These are to create a sound and efficient learning organization, to implement a research-based curriculum that meets the needs of all learners, to create learning environments tailored to meet the needs of our students, to assess for learning as well as success for our learners, to prepare students for the digital world that awaits them, and to build parent and community partnerships that expand opportunities for students.
As we continue to grow in Forney ISD at a rate of 6 to 7% each year, we're excited to begin this summer with construction at Ray and Smith elementary schools, as well as the Forney Academic Center, adding intermediate expansions and an early childhood center to add over 1,200 seats for K through 6.
The district is in great financial condition. We currently have over 3 months of operating expenses in our general fund balance. We've also been able to take advantage of low interest rates by refinancing our debt and saving money on interest expense.
The Forney Independent School District, in conjunction with the Kaufman County Sheriff's Office, recently conducted lockdown drills on each campus as part of our mandatory requirement for our emergency operations plan. The safety of our children is the utmost importance to the school district.
As part of our increased security measures in Forney ISD, we have completed phase 1 with our badge readers. Each campus currently has badge readers at each entrance, and teachers can keylessly enter the building. We are now evaluating all of our systems and looking at phase 2.
In terms of the HR world, we've been busy on a couple of projects this spring. On March 24th, we hosted our job fair, hosted at North Forney High School. We had over 160 participants come out. We got rave reviews on the job fair. Everyone loved the format. They got to find out a good bit about our district, and we got to do screening interviews on all those candidates to determine whether or not they were a good fit for our district. We were pleased to find out from our principals and those involved with the interviews that they were very pleased with the quality of applicants, and we've already received a number of recommendations to bring those in as future employees of Forney ISD. Also in March, the 6th and 7th, the HR department participated in a review process with the Texas Association of School Boards HR consultants. Those consultants came out and did a review of our district's HR practices, spent a couple of days with us. We're very complimentary of our work. We'll be getting back a full report from their review in May, and look forward to hearing ways that we can improve our services to our district.
In Forney ISD, professional learning is ongoing. From January to March, over 1,600 staff members attended over 150 hours of professional learning.
We are conducting future-ready curriculum dives that allow the learning specialists to meet with teachers to go over future-ready lessons. We have created over 62 future-ready curriculum lessons that cover more than 300 instructional days.
We are working with our campus teachers to develop a new scope and sequence to align with the new English Language Arts and Reading TEKS. These teachers are devoting hours to developing a new generation of ELAR learning in grades pre-K through 8.
February marked Forney ISD's 4th annual College and Career Focus Night. It was a huge success, with over 80% of our current 8th grade students and parents attending this event. This year, Forney ISD's dual credit student enrollment grew by nearly 30%, with an approximate increase of 500 more dual credit student hours earned. We are partnering with Eastfield to offer additional industry certifications for our high school practicum students in areas such as Certified Nursing Assistant and Electrical Apprenticeship. We are also excited to announce that our current dual credit students will have the opportunity to take summer school dual credit courses. And beginning next year, Forney ISD will offer an additional 10 hours of dual credit courses, which will allow students to earn an associate's degree in high school.
Our littlest learners are getting ready for August. We hosted our pre-K registration and over 60 students registered. We also had kindergarten roundup at each of our elementary campuses, and the excitement was palpable.
In January and February, Synergy students presented to educators across Texas
at state conferences about what we are doing at Forney ISD.
Then the Synergy students traveled down to Austin, Texas, where we visited the Google headquarters and we saw what it is like to work in a 21st century workplace.
And we saw how they supported each other through collaborative projects.
At the 2018 Texas Computer Education Association, Forney was represented through 4 different presentations: Synergy, Littles Love Canvas, Digital Citizenship, and Breakout EDU.
We're also excited to continue to expand our partnerships with the city and county as we integrate even our students into the planning process with a new program called Synergy with the City to allow their voice to be heard as well.
We've begun a joint venture with the City of Forney Youth Sports Organizations, those who fall under the City of Forney's umbrella, and Forney ISD Athletics. With the Positive Coaching Alliance is an organization that our coaches go through training each summer. We're just really excited to build that partnership and open up the potential for future partnerships with all levels of student athletes in Forney.
We hope you have enjoyed this video. Please be on the lookout for future updates as we continue to work to prepare Forney students for their successful futures.
Technical difficulties there. When we tried this earlier, it didn't have that black up top, but I really wasn't excited about my bald head in the picture, so I went ahead and had Wes add that in. So I hope you didn't mind the technical problems.
I thought maybe Wes had taken his creativity to a whole new level.
To a whole nother level, yeah.
Right.
That, as Mr. Bell said, none of us really understand, obviously.
That's it.
Yeah. This is just some of the great things going on in Forney. I hope you were not too distracted by the black. This is, again, an opportunity by us putting this on video to not only share this with our board and those who attend our meetings tonight, but we'll also get this out to the public so that we can be transparent with some of these things that our kids are doing here in Forney ISD. So, Mr. Bell, turn it over to the board for any questions that you may have about anything that we've got going on here in Forney.
Gotcha. Any questions concerning the Forney Focus update? All right. Thank you, Dr. Terry.
Yes, sir.
Moving on to 9D is the master planning update. Once again, recognize to the podium Dr. Justin Terry, our Deputy Superintendent. Dr. Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. We've got a special call meeting here on April 23rd where we will focus a lot on the construction aspect and the budget items that we've got from a master planning standpoint, as well as our progress on design. We will actually, at that meeting, go ahead and look at an approval of a demolition plan for some of the construction projects that we have to get accomplished. And then we'll come back to you in May with final bid proposals at that time to be approved on the May 14th agenda. So tonight, as you kind of follow along in our spring calendar, really tonight is about some of the conversion discussions that we've had and the committees that we've had working over the past 6 months, really, on this project of converting in 1920. And so tonight I wanted to bring Judy Weber forward. She's our Chief Learning Officer, and she's headed up our Programs Committee. And she is going to give you an update to some of the program discussions that have been occurring and even some decisions made tonight. So, Judy?
Thank you, Mr. Bell, Ms. McWilliams, and School Board. I wanted to give you an update on some of the discussions we've had on our programs moving forward with this 5th and 6th grade conversion. And we've gotten some team members together, and we're moving forward with really coming up with what fulfills the Forney Focus 2.0 and meets the needs of our community. So you can see from some of the images, we've really been looking at fine arts, PE, pre-athletics, STEM electives, and then what we can do in terms of advanced academics for our students here in Forney. So our first bit of work we started doing with what do we do with our 5th grade students. They're really coming out of elementary, so obviously they'll have ELA, R, math, science, and social studies, the 4 core. But we believe we'll be able to offer really robust programs for advanced academics in ELAR and math. So far, based on our programming and looking at the schedules, we would like to offer daily PE to those students, give them the movement, follow the TEKS, and follow what we need to. And then a rotation of some of the choices that they would have as electives for 6th grade. So they have a full survey of rotations where they can really decide what pathway do I want to choose in 6th grade to prepare for those middle school years. So for 6th grade, they'll obviously have the 4 core and advanced academics for ELAR and math, but 6th grade students will have elective choices. And because of the survey of all of the choices in 5th grade, we feel they'll be able to make really wise choices for their 6th grade year. So a STEM rotation and then pre-athletics or PE. We're looking at offering Spanish and some kind of introductory Spanish into 6th grade. And then for fine arts, choir, art, and band, and they would choose one of those, an elective. So we'll be very strategic in making sure our 5th grade students are well prepared to choose a couple electives for 6th grade that will also vertically align to our middle school and high school programs. Our advanced academics program, we're really looking at 2 options. For advanced math, we can do a TEKS realignment and bring the algebra TEKS on down in a really nice vertical progression down through 5th grade. So they don't have to rush and spend such a short amount of time in 7th and 8th, really in 7th, to be prepared for that 8th grade algebra year. We can make the progression much more gradual and look at a TEKS realignment. Advanced ELAR, we're kind of looking at a different option of really keeping them on the same scope and sequence as all of our students, but adjusting their reading material for our advanced readers who are reading a grade level or more above their peers. This allows us then to really examine what do we want as a K-4 advanced academics program to prepare for these middle grades. And so we are in our visioning stage of what does our community and our teachers and our families really want as a K-4 advanced program. So we're very excited to bring advanced academics on down by having those K-4 teachers clustered together so we can identify our students and serve their needs academically. Pre-athletics, we have a lot of really great conversations on using some of the time for character and leadership development, parent communication and engagement. Aligning our programs then with our feeder patterns and making sure our students have the foundational skills they need, nutritional and lifestyle skills. This will be a real blessing to students who don't grow up in the Little League system to have some training and understanding of some of our sports through our school system so they're prepared to go into their feeder pattern and then compete for us here in Forney. STEM, we're looking at a couple options, different coding programs, something called Raspberry Pi, where some small computers students can actually build and program to do some things and really preparing them for the whole technology careers that are out there. And we'd like to provide a survey of technology offerings for our intermediate students that will align with our Project Lead the Way programs in middle school courses. And then those can lead into computer science and engineering pathways in high school also. So we're able to bring some of our content from our really great, strong programs down and introduce kids even at 5th and 6th into these. Special programs I get asked about the most and where our units for special education will be housed or in the year where we reconfigure. And we currently use most of our campuses for our specialized units. We are always evaluating those programs, the facility needs, and the numbers. But we won't be able to determine the exact location until we get some of that later demographic data to see which campuses can handle which programs, because some programs take multiple classrooms and others are just a single room, like our typical elementaries have a traditional resource room where some of the students also are in inclusion. So special units from SPED will be determined later in the process when we get final numbers. Then one other program is one I'll deal with in the next agenda item, and that's dual language and the process we're going through to determine the best location for our dual language program.
Great.
Thank you, Judy. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Wanted to give you just a quick update on where we are with our programs discussion. Judy's done a great job with, and I'd like to just take a few minutes and thank our principals and teachers and parents for participating on not just the committees, but the subcommittees and the sub-subcommittees to get a lot of this feedback going. So really excited about the direction we're headed. Be glad to answer any questions you may have about the conversion process, the programs, or even construction if you'd like to get into it. However, I do not have my right and left hand from Gallagher and Huckabee here tonight warning. So.
Good. Any questions concerning the master planning update at this point? All right. Thank you, Dr. Terry. Moving on to item E is the dual language report. This time the chair would recognize Ms. Judith Weber, our Chief Learning Officer. Ms. Weber.
So currently, due to enrollment constraints, our dual language program is on 4 different campuses. And so you can see there we have pre-K2 separated from our 3rd through 6th. And by design, originally the program was split between the north side and south side. And then due to growth and some of our campuses growing very rapidly, we had to split the program again. Well, we know that one of our current challenges is that Smith and Ray will become intermediates. And so with that conversion to 5-6, that changes the dynamics, because right now Smith holds pre-K 2 and Ray holds 3rd through 6th. So you can see if they are realigned to 5-6 campuses, we're actually removing Smith entirely from the mix and then part of Ray. So it's a current challenge that we're facing. So we really need to look at where will our dual language program live moving forward. What campus or campuses, how will we really structure our program to meet the needs of our students and our parents and our teachers? So before we decided, well, let's just look at location, we thought this is a great opportunity to form a committee and look at our program. If we're going to make some changes, let's make our program, we evaluate things continually to always make them best for our community. So we started by collecting some data and evaluating the enrollment, how many students do we have in the program, what is our data really saying about our dual language program. So we had this committee that we formed with our campus leaders, central office leaders, and parents and teachers in the program. And we gathered feedback even from all of our parents. We sent out a survey to all our parents and teachers in English and Spanish, and we even offered paper version surveys for parents who don't have access to an electronic means, and we actually got paper surveys back, which gave them a voice on what they feel about our program and what they love and what they would like to see change. So we offered a feedback process to at least every person who participates in our dual language program. We also looked at some of our demographer data. We know we had to split it into 4 due to rapid growth, and so what could we do moving forward to make wise choices? So we studied data that's come from our demographers. And then our committee started looking at what we can do with all this data. What kind of recommendations can we make for campuses and for our program in general? So moving forward, we address anything that really comes up. So we found some real tremendous strengths in our program. And then the number one foremost is the instructional practices of these individuals. The dual language program has some of the best instructional practices around, the way the cooperative groups work and the way the lessons are designed. It's a very, very strong program. Each campus, even though it's split with 4, is giving these teachers a lot of support, and the parents. So that the parents and community and teachers felt like there was a lot of support from their campus administrators. And that's a real positive. That speaks very highly of our district leaders. And then student identification. We're doing a great job in getting kids in. We have more applications on the English side than we can even handle. But it's a robust program that we're doing well identifying students, because we find that their performance, they're academically on our state assessments, these students are doing very well. So the program is working academically. And then finally, there's a lot of support in the community for dual language. It's a program that the community embraces. It came out in Forney Focus 2.0. Through our information, though, we identified some weaknesses, and this one is not directly related to ESL, but it's one we always need to address, and that's the ESL support in general for our district as the ESL population grows tremendously. It's growing really outside of the dual language program, and some of our campuses are having really high numbers in ESL support. But how do we help all students who need to acquire English skills? Training. Our teachers overwhelmingly felt like they need more training to support our students like they would like to. And these are issues that really didn't come out of dual language. They really point to some things we need to address as a district. And then fidelity and consistency. When you spread a program, especially with these grade shifts, we need to shore up some of the fidelity and consistency among all 4 campuses. And that leads to accountability. Our teachers, just similar to our other program model, don't have a lot of collaboration with each other since they are spread out in the campus pathways where they are. So we're looking at a weakness of accountability among the teachers and collaboration. And then finally, resources. Once again, when we split the campuses, we had to divide up some of the resources. And you know how it is when you go to a K2 and then a 3-6. Sometimes you need resources that span a grade level above and below. So we've been looking at our resources for these programs. And then parent involvement. Some of the parents felt like they weren't as involved as they would like to be with the campuses. So these are issues that we want to be very transparent that we're looking at as a program. And if we're going to make recommendations for changing location, what can we do to also meet all the other needs of the parents and community? Our data also showed something else kind of interesting. And here's a north-south pre-K2, some LEP data. And you can see on the north side we have more students that are LEP than on the south side of town. And when we had the north side, south side split of the programs, we had trouble equalizing the number of English-speaking students to non-English-speaking students. And we need to equalize those for a dual program to work. In some of our grade levels, we're at like a 67-33, and so we've really stretched the limits of a program to work. We have too many non-speaking kids in some campuses. So the north-south split wasn't the best in terms of our populations and our community being very different. So based on all these, the committee overwhelmingly recommended that we combine K-4 dual on one campus. It allows us to fix the resource issue, really concentrate trainings that we offer, share resources, collaborate. It fixed many of the issues, make a really cohesive campus for parent involvement, and it helped fix the north-south discrepancies in numbers and populations. So the committee recommended that we put K-4 on one campus. Now we had a bit of quite a bit of discussion on what to do at 5-6. The committee really grappled with this because at first people were really leaning to, well, let's put that at one campus. But something very important happens at 5-6 that I showed you with the program changes. By 5-6, students are starting to choose electives, many of them that go into UIL feeder patterns, such as pre-athletics or band. By getting kids back to their home campus at 5th and 6th and having them belong with their entire peer group, then they can choose electives which lead them to finally be Falcons or Jackrabbits. Because if you join a band, or say you start on an athletic pathway, or even choir, you're going to compete in UIL events in 7th and 8th with a group of peers, and then eventually as your high school. So while we love the idea of keeping it at one, splitting it into two allows kids to go to their feeder pattern when all kids transfer from K-4 anyway, across the whole district, into these 5 and 6s and get in their feeder pattern to become the high school students we know they will. It also allows us to offer that potential Spanish elective because we would have Spanish-capable teachers on both sides of town, thus equalizing electives on both sides of town. We wouldn't want to have really great electives just on the north side or south side. So our recommendation was then to have both intermediates serve our students as we serve them in 5th and 6th and put them with their peer groups as they enter middle school. So then our team, once they realized we want one K-4, we really had to grapple with, well, how do we go about really choosing the best campus? And on the map, I have to automatically eliminate 2 of the campuses. And the committee very, very easily looked at the map of Forney and saw that some locations were much more isolated than others, that they made a pro and con list of every school, and every school does have pros and cons. We have great schools. But then we started overlaying the demographic data and looking at the high growth. And when you overlay the high growth on some schools, well, then you start seeing, well, can we take that kind of elementary out of the mix with the new housing that's going in with it? So the committee really came with their knowledge that there were at least 3 that had the most pros. And they called them the 3 C's, but they were centrally located. Some had more growth than others, but they really felt like keep it in a centralized location, travel time's not so far, and they ruled it down to a few. But when you overlay that other map, 2 of them still do have some future growth. So our final recommendation was to make all K-4 dual language on one campus at Criswell. This will help us increase efficiency with teacher staffing, accountability, resources, fidelity. We're going to recommend that we keep our pre-K in the Early Childhood Center. They'll be with all of our other pre-K programs in one location, really centered on early childhood learning and development. And then 5-6 would house both our dual language for Ray and Smith. And then we're going to continue, I left bullet 3 up there, we're going to continue to look at program improvements and how do we make the most amazing K-4 program that prepares kids for the transitions that they'll face at 5 and 6 and then moving on into our AP programs in high school. So moving forward, these changes were communicated to our campuses earlier today. We're going to hold parent meetings on the 17th and 18th because we need to let them know if they have kids in the program, what our process was to make these decisions and what things we're really evaluating as a group. And then we will hold our kinder enrollment meetings on the 25th and May 9th because parents will need to know if they put a child in that there will be a program change the following year. So. And we've really been great to communicate. It's such a great program, but we're not making any changes outside of pre-K to our dual program till the 1920 school year. We're going to spend a year really looking at how to make a great cohesive K-4 program, and then what kind of program changes we would like. More surveys, how do we meet the parents' needs? So none of the changes for dual will happen till the 1920 school year. We just wanted to get a jump ahead so that committees can continue to make our program a tremendous program for Forney.
Great.
So at this time, do you have any questions?
Okay. Any questions by the board concerning the dual language report?
I had a question.
Mr. White.
The Criswell numbers, the K-4 program there, how much of that campus is that? I mean, what kind of numbers are we talking about?
We currently have 367 students enrolled in dual language. The numbers fluctuate every year, but I checked the last 4 years, and it isn't on a tremendous rise. Our ESL population is increasing in Forney, but by and large, it's many other languages. In fact, these few kids from many other places. So it's been a steady 360 to 380 kind of range for the last few years.
So will Chris will have other non-K4,
Yes. Yes.
Dual language?
Yes, they will have non-dual students also, much like our other 4 campuses do at this time.
It's kind of operating side by side.
Mm-hmm. And we keep them on the same scope and sequences. The instructional model is a little different. There's 2 languages, but they follow the same, content that all of our teachers do.
Okay. Any other questions concerning the dual language?
Mr. Bell, a couple.
Yes, sir, Christopher.
The dual language program is an elective pathway that they go through, both for Spanish speakers and English speakers, correct?
And not on the Spanish side. When you first enroll, if you put that your home language is Spanish, you would have to deny services. But for our Spanish side, we serve those students through the dual language program.
But would they be able to go to one of the other campuses and do the ESL?
Yes, if they deny. Yes.
If they didn't want to travel from
Right.
their
They could stay
neighborhood
at their
to
home.
Criswell, they could still go.
Yes, and that's why we have ESL services at all of our campuses.
Right, okay. And then we'll provide, is there busing or transportation to provide?
We provide transportation on the Spanish side. Before, on the English side, it's an elective that parents choose to take their children to.
So they could choose to go there, they know where they'd have to travel if they
Right.
chose to go through the
Right.
program.
That's why we're
But
telling
there's
them.
advantages to that program as well.
Right. We're telling parents now so they know.
Right, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Ms. Weber. Great job.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. That's well done. Moving on to item 9F is the Lead 19 program report. This time the chair would recognize our AD, Mr. Neil Weaver. Mr. Weaver.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Bell. Once again, members of the board, Ms. McWilliams, it's a pleasure to have an opportunity to introduce the Lead 19 program to you and what that concept entails. I'm excited about it, and I do want to start by full disclosure. Mr. West Benjamin is a visionary and obviously an outstanding video maker. He had to apologize to me today for having to cut some of my positive video content out. He came in and said, give me some positive information about athletics, the things that are going on in our athletic programs across our campuses in the last few months. And I don't know, he may run out of film. I'm always excited and available and honored to be able to talk about the progressive motion of our program. And certainly the Lead 19 initiative is something that we feel is going to potentially be transformational for students. So we're going to be making a big deal about this program in the upcoming month or so. So we look forward to that. I do want to, it's not a standalone event, however. The event is going to take place on May 15th for our Forney ISD students. And again, I'll define this for you as well as I can, but I do need to give you some context so that you understand that the Lead 19 concept is part of a vertical progression. And in many ways, it's near the top of the vertical progression for our students who begin sports at whatever age. In Forney, you saw me mention our partnership with our Little League organizations to get those kids involved in some positive motion already before they get to 7th and 8th grade and eventually potentially 6th grade. But there's a ladder that our students move through as these students athletes go through in Forney ISD, from the lower levels and what those things are defined as, to the freshman and sub-varsity levels, and then on to the varsity level, then eventually to their senior year. And that's really the purpose of Lead 19, is to prepare our junior class here in the spring prior to their final summer and prior to their senior year, to prepare them through this penultimate step of that progression to be seniors and to be senior leaders in our program. And we recognize that through League 19 that seniors quite often, just by the nature of being seniors and the oldest and having that status, have a tremendous value in an athletic program, in any school system. They also have a tremendous ability to influence other students all the way down throughout the remainder of that ladder. So that's the focus and the purpose of Lead 19. Here's the context. I had an opportunity a couple of weeks ago to speak to a regional organization of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And my talk was about the life of a coach, something I'm very passionate about. And we have, as you know, many, many outstanding coaches in this district and have for a long time. And we were talking about the life of the coach. And the context I was giving them was about my father. Obviously, that's my history. And I sort of knew the life of the coach long before I lived the life of the coach. And I knew the power of the ability of coaches to influence students. And in that talk, I won't go into the details of my father's life or his accomplishments as a coach or mine, but what I will tell you is that this is what I didn't tell him. 40 years ago, for a coach in a school setting, it was enough to be a person of high integrity, to be a great role model, to be an excellent tactician, to be organized, to work hard. That was enough. It was enough to be successful. In some cases, maybe it was enough to be in the Hall of Fame, as my father was. 20 years ago, when I was coaching, it was enough. But it's not enough anymore. And I think that's sort of the vision of our school districts, to be innovative, is we've got to be imaginative now. With the changes in society, with the changes of the influences on students, with the change in, at one time it was easy for a student to stay on the path, to stay on that progressive path, and with that progressive motion. It was easy for us to keep them there. If we had a great role model and a person of great integrity for them to follow, they typically did. But there are so many exits now. There's so many opportunities for students to deviate from that path. We have to imaginatively and creatively look for ways to barricade those exits. And so we've done that in Forney ISD over a series of years. This is another thing you learn when you're preparing a presentation for the board, is that when you have a black background, you don't use a gray font. I apologize for that. But as you can see, the student athletes, it's at the center of everything we do. And surrounding that student athlete, obviously, is the coach, the parent, and the community. And all three of those play extremely important and pivotal roles in the positive motion, again, of that student through this vertical process. But we've chosen some support structures that we've had in place for a number of years beyond that personal support of coach and parent and community. Quickly, I'll define three of these, because these three surround our students as they move through up that ladder toward what we're going to hopefully define as the capstone in Lead 19. The three of them are, I didn't know how to do it. First, the Positive Coaching Alliance. And I mentioned this in the brief video before. We've partnered with the Positive Coaching Alliance in training for our coaches. We've also partnered with them in training for Little League coaches here in Forney, in the city of Forney, through the Parks and Recreation Department, all those Little League organizations that umbrella beneath the Parks and Rec Department. We've offered them, they've had 2 already, workshops through the Positive Coaching Alliance, just as our coaches take Positive Coaching Alliance workshops during the summer, during our summer training that we offer for all of our coaches in 7 through 12. We've got another one in August prior to FYFL football beginning, and we're really excited to begin to develop layers of that partnership and speak a common language and lay out a common plan so that we can, hopefully, our vision is, hopefully this will come to fruition, that when a student begins sports in Forney, Texas, America, from the time they pick up a ball or enter a field, whenever that is, second grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, come into the school program, all the way until they walk across our stages. That we can say they've been coached individuals, which is the training that the Positive Coaching Alliance offers at the basic level. I will tell you, we've also offered Positive Coaching Alliance training to our parents at our junior high level. We speak about Positive Coaching Alliance terminology in our programs. Our head women's soccer coach at Forney High School just wrote an article that the Positive Coaching Alliance is going to be featuring very soon about how she's incorporated into her program. So all throughout the system you see PCA, and we're excited because PCA gets to be invested in these kids before they ever even get to the school program now, which is a really exciting thing. The other is a Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and specifically the FCA's character coaching program. Really neat program that was birthed in the Metroplex. It's fairly new. It's nationwide though. And we have done more in Forney ISD to embrace and to employ the character coach program than any school that exists in the state of Texas or anywhere that it's been employed. It's UIL approved. Essentially what it is, if I could define it quickly, is that positive, success-oriented community members have an opportunity to go through training that the FCA provides, and then they're partnered with an athletic program to add another layer of support, personal support from the community within that program. That's a really neat thing, and we're very excited about it. And the FCA has actually had to add staff because of the growth in character coach program and need for training in Forney ISD, which is really, really exciting. Particularly, most of that growth has been on the girls' side. They've actually added a female staff member so that they can facilitate that. So lots of really neat things happening with the FCA. We've got presence on all 4 campuses, and we've got character coaches, UIL approved, trained character coaches participating and interacting with our programs throughout the district. We're excited about that. 2 words, character development or character development curriculum is the third support structure that we've partnered with, and I'm working toward LEAD 19. I know I'm here to define LEAD 19, and that's really the simplest definition. But you have to understand the process that a student athlete is going through to move toward that junior and senior year. So the PCA, we get involved early on. The FCA, through the character coach, could be involved at any point within any team in their tenure in Forney ISD. And then finally, 2 words, character development is our latest addition to our offering. We actually installed that this year. A gentleman named Stephen Mackey put that program together. It is a video-based character development curriculum. And what I'll tell you is that at some level, in some way, all of our sports offer character development. Some coaches have their own program. You guys know Coach Jackson at North Forney wrote his book about it. Everybody in their own way in each of their programs has a character development tenet of that program. Just as they all do community service projects. Every sport we have does some sort of community service project here in Forney. But the neat thing about this is it gives a baseline curriculum, a common language again, but something that any coach at any level can embrace and use within their program. So where we've opened 2 words, character development, it's a video content. Again, it's a weekly program that they go through and build upon throughout the year. And where we've installed that is at our 7th and 8th grade. So those students who are beginning in our program have a comprehensive character development curriculum to go through. It's the same for boys and girls in every sport across the board in 7th and 8th grade. They all do it. They all watch it. They all participate in it. Parents can participate with them if they choose to. They can log in and look at the character development lessons that go along with 2 words. Mr. Mackey has been to our campuses on a few occasions and spoken to our kids. It's a great, really neat program, and we hope to get those kids on that baseline all together, prepared to move through the ladder. And that's something we would extend to 6th grade as we get to pre-athletics. It would be a fundamental part of the 6th grade pre-athletic program. All right, so with all that said, with those 3 support structures already built in and having been in place for some time, we're preparing kids to move up the ladder. And we know by the way, I probably should have clicked through these before. This is another danger of putting together a thing, but I'm happy to talk about PCA and FCA and 2 words character development at any time. Quick slide on PCA. They featured our school district on their national website not too long ago for the partnership that we're helping to develop in the community. Lots of great things happening with FCA. You guys probably are most familiar with seeing the Fellowship of Christian Athletes as our partner for the Unity Bowl game. That's very, very visible. But the FCA initiative takes place every week in, week out, throughout Forney ISD, and those character coaches are active with us at all times. So many activities going on week to week with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And then 2 words, again, that's Stephen Mackey on the upper right. That's Stephen speaking to a group of our junior high kids. He comes in and speaks to our high school kids. He's spoken to our parent organizations. It's just a really neat thing to be involved with. So that leads me to Lead 19. And this is the reason I'm here and the thing that I most importantly wanted to define for you tonight, because at the end of the definition, I'm going to invite you to participate in it if you would like to, and to be the first members of our board to be the first invitees for this event. It is the first event of its kind, not only in Forney ISD, but it's the first event of its kind that I know of anywhere. It's a leadership summit for emerging seniors, and it's for every junior student athlete, every emerging senior in any sport, boys or girls, at either campus. And we hope, as I said at the beginning, that it's going to be a potentially transformational thing for them. What we're going to do with Lead 19, let me say before I get too far into defining this, that Coach Ben Rudolph is here tonight from North Forney High School. Coach Rudolph was instrumental in working with me to conceptualize this. And the actual title, Lead 19, is his baby, his invention. And we had long conversations about how to put this leadership summit together. And we continue to work with an ever-increasing sphere of coaches and committees and support staff and groups. It's going to be very much a group project to get us to May 15th and put on a great activity for our kids. But Lead 19 is a leadership summit. So in effect, what's going to happen is every junior, boys and girls from every sport, will come together, and the first thing we're going to do is feed them. We're going to sit them together by sport. So the softball girls from each of our high schools will be sitting together. The tennis kids from each of our high schools will be sitting together, and so on and so forth, with coaches to facilitate the tables. And this is where I get to the invitation that's forthcoming, and also members of our community to help facilitate the conversations that we're going to have. And obviously by feeding them, by opening a conversation, by getting to know each other, because what we find in Forney is that as we grow, our kids and our programs know each other less and less. There was a time not too long ago when we could meet on the football field before the game, or we would line up to shake hands at the end of a baseball game, and every kid knew every kid. I mean, that wasn't very long ago. They had grown together. We had split. They knew each other from summer activities and select activities. It's not the case so much anymore. We're getting big. So we're going to introduce them to one another. We're going to sit together. We're going to talk about our goals as a district for each program. Our coaches and our community members hopefully will help facilitate that. And then we're going to progress into a leadership summit. Essentially, we have 6 carefully selected speakers that are going to come in, each with his or her own message, which is really a tool. I think of it as a toolbox. And we're particular. It's not a pep rally. We want our kids to leave this leadership summit with tools to go back in and affect their program, their campus, their sphere within Forney ISD and Forney at large. So we want to give them tools. So each speaker will bring a tool to speak about. 30 minutes, and then we'll have a roundtable discussion back at those tables. So we'll seed that, we'll facilitate that, our coaches will help participate in that. And that's where our community members, we hope, will also bring a perspective to those discussions at the roundtable. So as we go through those 6 leadership presentations, we're going to talk to our emerging seniors about how to be a senior, about how to be a leader within the program, about how to affect positive motion with whatever their role is within whatever team, on whatever campus, how for them to be an effective member of the positive motion of that organization. And Mr. Mackey, who has created the 2 words video curriculum, he's one of our speakers, by the way, very dynamic speaker. He's spoken all over the nation. He's creating for us then a video follow-up series to bring back to them when they're seniors. So we're not just having an event and then turning them into their senior year and saying, okay, best of luck, go apply these tools to your sports. We're going to bring them back in and follow up with them and gauge our success and gauge how the content is being applied within their programs. So you see what the targets are? Obviously, it's although we want to be excited, we will be excited about this. It's a great potential. It's a great event. We're gonna hype it. Everybody's gonna know about it because it's gonna be really big, I think, for our kids and for our programs. But we want it to be a deeply effective event too. We really do. We want our students to take something with that's going to be useful for them for the rest of their lives, but in the short term, useful for them as a senior in our program. There are some other things that Lead 19 will follow toward. For example, students being able to partner, a senior student being able to partner with a freshman as a mentor. They have to go through this program and learn to do that positively to be able to be eligible for that. For students to come back and work our summer camps. We have that happens from time to time. Students who are around, haven't gone to college yet, will want to work our summer sports camps and the summer after their senior year. Lead 19 will prepare them to come in, we hope, and be effective all the way throughout the program, from those kids who are in our little leagues all the way down to second and third graders throughout the entire ladder of progress as they go through our program. So we're very excited about Lead 19. Again, it's May 15th. And what I would like to invite you to do is be a community representative, members of the board. If you'd like to, we'll save a place at the table. And you can participate in that conversation with kids in our programs and facilitating the follow-ups to our leadership series. If you can't do that, we'd love to invite you anyway to come eat with us and enjoy the day and participate in the day. I'll tell you, around every corner, throughout every week and every season, there are so many positive things happening in Forney ISD and in Forney ISD athletics. We think this is going to be one of the neatest we've ever had. And though every program in our school participates in community service, we feel like Lead 19 will be a springboard for them to be invested in the community from here on out. So, as you can tell, I could go on. I won't. I know that the purpose is to expedite this and be quick and concise, and I probably didn't do that very well. But I'm very excited about Lead 19, and you'll be hearing about it, you'll be seeing it, and we would love for you to participate in it. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, that concludes my definition of the Lead 19 initiative.
Thank you, Coach Weaver.
Yes, sir.
Question, I know it's on May 15th. What time and what location?
The meal we're going to feed is lunch.
Okay.
So it'll begin at midday, and it will progress through a little bit after the end of the day, so probably 4:30. It's long enough for our 6 speakers to have their 30-minute presentations for us to facilitate roundtable talks. So approximately noon to 4:30. It's at Mustang Creek Community Church, which is where we, as you know, is a midpoint for us. We have banquets there. We've had our Unity Bowl football breakfast there for a few years now, so it's a good venue our kids are familiar with.
Okay, just the commitment then would be from noon to 4:30.
Yes, sir.
That day.
Although for board, if you'd like to come for the meal at midday and just the beginnings of it, we're more than happy to set you up for that as well.
Great, thanks, Coach.
Yes,
Any
sir.
questions concerning the Lead 19? Great job.
Thank you.
It's
There'll be
all
more to
about-
come. You'll see it. We're going to make sure that we blanket Forney as well as we can with it, because we're
Right.
really excited about it.
Well, that's great, both leadership and character and our athletics. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it. Moving on, to item G is to announce school board compliance, non-compliance of continuing education hours. I will ask you to turn to page 27 in your packet. This report was done at the December the 4th, 2017 school board meeting. However, policy BBD legal was revised in TASB policy update number 109 and now states that the minutes of the last regular board meeting held before an election of trustees must reflect whether each trustee has met or is deficient in meeting the training required for the trustee as of the first anniversary of the date of the trustee's election or appointment. If the minutes reflect that a trustee is deficient, the district shall post the minutes on the district's internet website within 10 business days of the meeting and maintain the posting until the trustee meets the requirements. Completion of the required annual training is an obligation and expectation of any board member under State Board of Education rules. The following board members have completed and/or exceeded their annual continuing education hours. That includes Christopher Andrews, Keith Bell, Barbara Jo Green, Chad Johnson, Greg Ferris, Scott Reagan, and Michael White. So it's my honor to tell the community that we have made and are in compliance with our obligation of BBD legal policy, and that concludes my report on item G. Any questions concerning the announcement of school board compliance of continuing education hours? Thank you. By the way, Barbara Jo, that's for you to be in compliance since you're running for re-election.
Thank you, sir.
You bet. All right, moving on to item 10, consent agenda. Item A is the minutes of the March 5th, 2018 regular meeting. Item B is to approve a budget amendment. Item C is to adopt TASB policy update number 110 affecting local policies is listed and as a final reading. BBB local board members and elections. Item D is a statement of impact form from charter schools that could have a major financial impact on Forney ISD. Number 1 is the Universal Academy at 2616 North MacArthur Boulevard, Irving, Texas, proposing a new campus at 25631 Smotherton Road in Frisco, Texas, to serve pre-K 12th grades, and total maximum enrollment is expected to be 836 students. FISD is included within their boundaries. Number 2 is the Nova Academy Southeast. Approved geographic boundaries include the Forney ISD. Number 3 is the Texas College Preparatory Academics, proposing a new address to be determined in the Rockwall area. Forney ISD is currently included in the approved geographic boundaries. Cityscape Schools Incorporated is proposing a new address plan for the Dallas or Garland area. This new campus will serve pre-K 12th grades and is expected to have a minimum enrollment of 950 students. The list of currently approved geographic boundaries includes Forney ISD. A.W. Brown Leadership Academies proposing a new address at 4221 South Walton Walker, Dallas, Texas, which will serve 6th through 8th grade levels, and the expected maximum enrollment at this campus will be 500 students. A-Plus Academy at 8225 Bruton Road, Dallas, Texas. They are proposing a new address that will be located in the Pleasant Grove community, and the currently approved geographic boundaries include Forney ISD. They are proposing another location at an unknown location, and the Forney ISD is included in the currently approved geographic boundaries. Item E is to request for remote conferencing waiver. Item F is to request for low attendance waiver. And item G is to consider the library board appointment of David Morgan to fill remaining vacancy due to the resignation of Lauren Jackson, FISD Place 1 on the Ellen Brooks West Memorial Library Board of Directors through August the 31st, 2020. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to take the consent agenda items collectively or individually, whatever the board's pleasure.
Move to approve the consent agenda collectively.
Motion by Mr. White, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Green. I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to item 11, considered agenda item A, consideration of possible action on the granting of an exemption of value under tax code 11.251. At this time, the chair would recognize Dr. Justin Terry, our deputy superintendent. Dr. Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Can I get you some water, sir? You're okay. All right. Good job. All right. Thank you. We're excited to come to you tonight with an action item that was brought to us actually by the Economic Development Corporation of City, and specifically Warren Ketteman. And he was approached by some of our local businesses, as well as a special project I'm sure he's going to share for potential business here in Forney ISD. And what he brought to us was this concept of becoming a triple Freeport district. And right now we currently are a double Freeport. Our county and city do allow for Freeport exemptions. But the district has not decided to allow that exemption thus far. So tonight what we'd like to do is really bring you a three-part presentation to inform you of what it is that is being brought to us from the city and the Economic Development Corporation. Warren Ketteman is going to present to you first and talk to you a little bit about what Freeport is, as well as some of the benefits he sees for our city and our community, and a special project that he's involved in. Second, I would invite up, we've asked our attorneys to do some research, our tax attorneys to do some research, and so we will ask Elizabeth Calvo and her team from Purdue Brandon to come give you a good definition of Freeport and some of their experience that they've had with Freeport districts. And then finally, I've asked Mr. John Chase, our Chief Financial Officer, to talk to you a little bit about the financial impacts that Freeport exemption may have on our school district, and then I'll do my best to summarize this information to you. So at this time, I'd invite up Mr. Warren Ketteman to talk to you a little bit about Freeport and some of the projects here in Forney ISD he's working with.
Thank you, Dr. Terry. Mr. Bell, school board members, Madam Superintendent, soon to be retired and headed for the beach. Good to see you all. Thank you so much. First, I'm going to apologize if I slip up and say mayor and council, because that's normally my role when I'm standing here. So if I do that, I beg your indulgence as we move forward. And thank you, Dr. Terry, for your time. Recently, we've had several discussions and all on Freeport exemption. First, before I go any further, Stuart McGregor is here from my office, my economic development specialist. Joe Dan McBeth is here as chairman of the Economic Development Board. And Mr. Myers is here, city council member, attending as well. So I appreciate the support. So if you have any additional questions, Dr. Terry, as we move through this, anything I can answer, and I've got good folks over there on my right arm. Freeport exemption. Currently, the city and the county both participate in Freeport. And what the heck is Freeport? I'm not going to bore you. You're going to have another presentation from some folks here to tell you more about that. Freeport exemption has to do with a property tax exemption on goods that are shipped out of Texas within 175 days. Now, they may or may not be manufactured here. It may be warehouse product that's brought in and shipped, stored here, and then shipped out of the state of Texas in 175 days. As I said, the city and the county already participate in that in this area, in Forney particularly. So when I was visiting with Dr. Terry, I said, Doctor, to give you an idea, and I'm gonna look at my notes if you'll indulge me. I said, the city and the county is participating, but what does that mean if the school district was participating in that? And currently you're not. So the city and county were freeporting about $5.3 million worth of goods in this area, over 4 businesses. There were 4 businesses in Forney that were taking advantage of the Freeport exemption as presented by city and county. $5.3 million worth of product that was freeported. So using that and multiplying that by the school district tax rate of $1.54, that comes to about $83,000 that the school district would have been freeporting if that would have been in existence. So that gives you some idea what that means. Could that grow over time, the city and county portion? Absolutely. As we continue to grow, businesses will take advantage of that. To that vein, we just had a large prospect call on Forney, large warehouse distribution prospect that came to Forney. And one of the first things, when they did the site visit, let me back up, they were using a site consultant out of the Dallas area, and they looked at various sites throughout North Texas and settled on originally about 9 that they whittled it down to, and we were in the running on that. They have since whittled that down to 5 sites they're looking at. We're still in the running on that. They still like the Forney location. When they came and did their site visit in Forney, which is kind of the holy grail of economic development, you know you're actually in the running when the company actually comes and visits you. They whittled it down that far. And they came, they flew into Mesquite in their private jet. They came over here in a bus. We met them on the property, which is out here at the Gateway property, and we went on the bus and made a presentation. I was there with the real estate firm who was representing the property. One of the first things they asked, I said, Warren, what can you tell us about Freeport exemption and where are you? I said, well, I've had some preliminary discussions with Dr. Terry. We're working through that. We're going to have to work through the channels. We got to get in front of the school board, get their feedback. I can't give you a definite yes today. I can give you, we're working on it. And that's where I left it. And I'll never forget the gentleman from CBRE that was involved in the site search, their site consultant, said, Mr. Ketterman, whether you get it done for this project or not, you need to work on that and get it done. It's good for economic development for Forney, Texas, to get that Freeport exemption in place. Now, why would he say that? In an email that I sent to Dr. Terry a few weeks ago, as part of it, I said, Dr. Terry, here's a quick list of surrounding communities offering triple Freeport exemption as part of their economic development efforts. Terrell, Balch Springs, Rockwall, McKinney, Greenville, Rowlett, Mesquite, Arlington, Plano, Mansfield, Grand Prairie, Allen, Wilmer, Mount Pleasant, Decatur, and others. And I added another sentence of my own. As an EDC, we're at a disadvantage when competing against these communities as it pertains to this exemption. That is absolutely true. As an economic development group, we have certain tools in our toolbox that we use along with our city partners and our county partners. Freeport is another one of those tools that we can use. Now, the question you may ask is, Warren, if you have this exemption in place, is that a guarantee that a company will land in Forney? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Just like any other tools that I have in my toolbox, there's no guarantee the company's going to land here. The market, labor, location, transportation, all those things come into the mix. And I think we stacked up pretty good in Forney on a lot of those. A good example where we didn't stack up was Amazon. Amazon's looking to build, you're smiling, Mr. Regan, yeah, but they look, you know, we put a package in from Forney with our partners with the Dallas Chamber. They wanted mass transit to the door. We don't really have mass transit. We have Star Transit, I said out in Kaufman County, but we didn't match up completely, but that one item we didn't have. But we went ahead and submitted anyway, because we have land, we have a great location. Who knows? The worst they can say is no, right? You know, new employment, 50,000 jobs, might not be a bad deal to have them next door. But yeah, we have to have as many tools as we can in our toolbox, and this is one that we're looking at. With your help, we could do that. Let me see. Freeport exemption, and I don't want to get too deep into it. As I said, we'll have another presentation. How would all that work? The one thing I would want to stress before anything is if the school board decides this is the way you want to go after hearing all the information, when you enact Freeport exemption, there's no going back. Once it's in place, it's in place. There's no rescinding Freeport exemption. So bear that in mind as you hear the information tonight and make your decision. The one thing I can tell you was in Forney, in the last year, last fiscal year, I just did some information. We were talking about that $5.3 million that is being Freeported. Last year within the city of Forney, our community development department issued 25 commercial building permits valued at over $46 million. And I wrote, as Forney continues to grow, and as such, I believe we can provide strong data to support the idea of triple Freeport and the opportunity for the ISD to offset any Freeport exemption taxes with additional growth. And I firmly believe that, because Freeport's only part of what a company would do. The prospect that we had is looking at, that we're currently working, is looking at over 1 million square feet. 1 million square feet of building, plus all the equipment that would go in the building. And the inventory that's in the building that's not Freeport. So the Freeport is one section of that. If you look at the whole, if the whole thing comes as one package, Freeport is one piece of that. Now, there's other opportunities for companies to look for incentives from the city or the EDC. We have sales taxes we can bring to the table and other incentives we can provide. Cities provide tax relief with sales tax or property tax through Chapter 380 of the tax code. Counties can participate through Chapter 381. So there's all kinds of things we can do. But this gives us that one more tool that makes it a little more palatable for business. So I'll stop right there. And if there's any questions at all you have for me direct, I'll answer those. And I don't want to cut into anybody else's time because we have quite a bit to go over, I know.
Sure, Mr. Gettleman, if it's pleasing to the board, we'll just go ahead and run through the presentations and then have you ask questions that you may have towards any of the three presenters tonight, if that's okay.
Sure. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. I'd like to now invite up Elizabeth Calvo and her team. I'll let her introduce them from Purdue Brandon to give you a little more information and definition behind Freeport. Elizabeth, you want to dance?
Good evening, Board, Mr. Bell, Mrs. McWilliams. With me tonight are my partner, Bruce Medley, as well as attorney Ben Parsons. Just as Dr. Terry mentioned, we were tasked with providing an overview of Freeport exemption. So with that, I will pass it off to my partner, Bruce Medley.
Board, superintendent, staff. I have, one of the things that I work on with the firm, and I've been with the firm for 35 years, is economic development issues. And I have run across this issue before. And we did a very brief, I promised that I would be brief, so I will be brief, with regards to the Freeport exemption. This was added to the Constitution of the state back in 1989. It was approved by the voters. Basically, only cities, counties, schools, and junior college districts could opt to tax Freeport goods. It required an actual vote before April 1 of 1990. Forney did vote to tax Freeport goods at that point in time. And once it specifically says in Article 8, Section 1J, subsection B, that a district that originally voted to tax Freeport goods may at any time in the future vote to rescind that decision. And that's what we have before us today, is not actually an adoption of the exemption, but a rescission of the vote to tax. The triple Freeport means that the county, the city, and the school, the three main players in property tax issues, all grant the Freeport exemption. The way it works is set off by 1 year. A company would file an application with the appraisal district. That application would state a value for all their inventory. They would then state how much of that inventory goes out of the state within 175 days. Based on that prior year's percentage of Freeport to total inventory, that's the percentage of exemption which is applied to the total inventory this year. So if last year they sent 50% of their inventory out of state within 175 days, this year it'd be a 50% exemption applied to their total inventory. So we're always 1 year off. With regards to other school districts appointing the Freeport exemption, we put in the page here other counties where the total amount of school districts with how many of them are granting Freeport. In Collin County of 14 ISDs, half of them grant Freeport. In Dallas County of 16 school districts, 14 grant Freeport. And in Tarrant County, 21, 15 grant Freeport. In Kaufman County, in this county, both Terrell ISD and Kemp have granted the exemption, and neighboring districts, Dallas, Mesquite, and Rockwall, have adopted the exemption. There are, of course, pros and cons. As was told to you, this is a one-way trip. Once you rescind that original vote to tax and allow the exemption to go into place, you can never change your mind. That's going to be that way forever, or unless the Constitution itself is amended by the voters. That being said, it is one of the few tools that a school district can use to participate in economic development. The legislature took abatements away from you. The legislature has very strict guidelines and limitations on Chapter 313 agreements, which was put into place in place of abatements to allow school districts to do some economic development, but that requires state approval, and obviously you can't give grants either. So this is the one tool for the district that has the highest tax percentage of all the districts within a particular geographical area to participate in economic development. That being said, as I said, I would be brief, and I will be available for questions.
John's going to come up and talk to you a little bit about the impact if we did decide to exempt from a Freeport standpoint, what that would have on the district, as well as I've asked him to talk to us a little bit about if the project that Mr. Ketterman was speaking to you about, Project Fireball, if that did come to fruition and we did participate, what type of impact that would have in a positive standpoint from a revenue perspective as well. So, John?
So just to talk about the financial impact, as was mentioned already, $83,000 would be what our loss in revenue would be if we did not tax this estimated $5.3 or $4 million that's currently being taxed in our district. Now that, because of the lag effect in the funding formula, that would be we'd lose that entire amount of revenue in year one. In year two and forward, then. In the general fund or on the foundation school program formula, any losses that we lose of that $83 million would be offset by state increases in state aid. So there would be no effect beyond the general funds portion of that $83,000 is 50 or so thousand or somewhere in that neighborhood. So really what we're talking about is what are we going to lose on the debt service side, and that's a little tricky, but essentially we can say at a maximum we would lose $27,000 a year for granting this exemption. Now it could be as little as $11,000 that I had listed there, and that all depends on what our property values do. If we grow fast enough this next year, if we grow 12%, we're not going to get any more money out of EDA and IFA anyway. So then we would actually lose the $27,000. Now, if we only grow at 8% and then 4% thereafter, our loss could be just as little as $11,000 because we'd still be getting state aid in the EDA program. So moving on to the project that we have before us tonight. If this project if we were to gain $120 million in value, which is what the estimates that we were given that this potential could be, that represents about $1.8 million in revenue in taxes at a $1.54 tax rate. Now again, we have that lag in the funding formula, so we would actually get a one-time windfall of cash of $1.8 million in the first year. After that, in the second year and thereafter, it's going to be equalized on the state aid side, so the general fund is going to be a net neutral on that. So then what we're talking about is what would we gain in the debt service fund. It could be as much as $600,000 again if you take that that $120 million divided by 100 and multiply by 50 cents. That's $600,000. If we're still getting state aid in there, and the loss in state aid that we would get from that would roughly be about $250,000 or somewhere at $260, somewhere in that neighborhood. So it could be as little as $340,000 in gain on the debt service side. So somewhere in there. It just depends again on value growth independent of these two projects here. So. Worst case scenario, if the project comes, we'd only get $340,000, but that's still $340,000, and we'd be granting, anywhere from $11,000 to $27,000 in exemption. So it's a pretty good trade-off.
Thank you, John. Just really quickly, wanted to summarize up a couple key points here that I wanted to share before you had an opportunity to discuss this as a board. First off, this is something that we are actually surrounded by right now. I think Mr. Ketterman shared this. Mesquite, Rockwall, Terrell, Dallas ISD, all of our neighbors are participating in this. And so we are one of the few in this area that have not opted in to the exemption. Second, we've had good discussion with our EDC, and what they have talked to us about is the possibility of recommending and going to recommend a grant to their board of about 3 years of $83,000 per year. And in other words, to help our district transition to this exemption. We will have a little bit of a shortfall in liability, about $27,000 over the years. They have offered to recommend this to their board. This is not for sure, but this is a recommendation that Warren has shared with me. What would this grant do for our district? Just kind of playing with the numbers. Obviously, the first year, $83,000 would be a wash, but it would subsequent years. It would actually give us about 6 years of transition past that first year, for a total of 7 years where our district should not feel much of an impact, if any. And that would give us an opportunity then to grow our values and then hopefully bring in some additional businesses if that was approved. And then finally, this just provides opportunity for commercial growth. It gives Warren and his team, like he said, another tool in their tool belt as they go out searching for additional commercial industry. It gives us a fighting chance with Project Fireball and some of those opportunities for future businesses. And the impact, as John shared on the INS side of things, is tremendous. If we could land 1, maybe 2 down the road, then 3, then 4, what this does from our debt service side of things is very exciting, honestly. And for every commercial lot we put up, I'll be honest with you, that is also less residential that we are landing. Therefore, that is a positive impact to the school district. I do want to point out again that you have 3 options tonight that we shared with you at least. The first option for you to discuss is the adoption of the resolution in your board book, and that is to go ahead and adopt a Freeport exemption. And you could take action on that tonight as a board. The second option that was shared with you was a drafted letter of support that we would send to our EDC and the city and allow them to utilize that as a tool in their tool belt as well. That letter of support is not binding. It is just saying that we support the idea that if other businesses come in or the Project Fireball does come in, that we would then bring this back to the board at that time. That is not a commitment, if that makes sense. And then finally, you have an option to take no action at all tonight. So we're trying to bring you 3 options. Mr. Bell, I'll turn it back over to you for discussion, and I think we have a row of people that are happy to answer any questions that you may have as well.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Terry. Any questions by the board concerning this granting of an exemption of value under tax code 11.251? Yes, sir. Ms. Green?
How does this affect us as far as, would Robin Hood come into play with getting more money from that?
John, yeah, we're actually equalized on the M&O side. I'll let John address that.
So we're still far well below what the Robin Hood recapture would be. You'd have to have over $500,000 per student in wealth before you get to that Robin Hood area, and we're in the 300,000 area. So a project of just adding 120 million would not impact us for Robin Hood.
And Ms. Green, if I may add, Ms. Green, I'm glad you asked that of Mr. Chase and not us, because I know Dr. Terry said we got people to answer questions, because school finance and we don't get along. So I'm glad you got those folks over there that got all that stuff figured out. So thank you.
Any other questions? Christopher?
Yeah. I've got several. The Fireball, whatever company that is, has made no commitment to Forney, just 1 of 5, right?
Correct, sir.
But one of our
Absolutely.
options tonight is for us to make a commitment, hoping that they would come to Forney.
Yes, sir. As I understand it from Dr. Terry, you have three options. One is do nothing. One is to act upon the Freeport exemption, or the other option would be a letter of support if this project would come to fruition in Forney.
So the
And it
first
would be
option-
brought back to you, Freeport would be brought back to you for your consideration.
So the first option, the way I interpreted that was just a fall lockstep behind the county and the city, and then anything that they wanted to anybody that applied for Freeport and was given Freeport, then it would automatically go to Freeport for us.
Currently, yes. So we have 4 companies that we have identified that are currently accessing double Freeport, and as of adoption, they would immediately be have the opportunity to apply for triple Freeport.
Okay, so we haven't talked about any of that money at all. We just always talked about is Fireball.
That is the $83,000 liability.
Right.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Is the 4 or is that the
That is
Fireball?
That's the 4.
Yes, sir.
That's the
Mr.
four.
That's the 4.
And so
Yes, sir.
we have 4 right now, and then we don't know how many we're going to get next year or the year following and so forth. So that number, we're looking at numbers and essentially saying, look at all this growth if these people do show up, which we don't know if they're showing up. But we also don't know how many other companies are going to have Freeport, right?
Currently, what we've identified, that is correct. Currently, what we've identified throughout, we've had our attorneys look at the tax rolls, please feel free, as well as Warren, to examine that with the CAD, and we've only identified 4 that would qualify. And so you want to address that at all?
There are 4 who have currently applied for Freeport. Freeport is required to apply to the appraisal district on an annual basis. We know of 4 that have applied. Can I tell you that there may not be some other company out there who is unaware of it, that doesn't apply next year?
Right.
There could be.
Right.
So I can't really.
And we don't know what that is.
Exact number.
Now, just so I'm clear, you have to be in manufacturing to do this. You have to create a product and then move an inventory here? Because it's got to be an inventory.
Definition, which is in Article 8, Section 1J. Unfortunately, we didn't go into a lot of detail on this. It's 170 days of acquisition or manufacture.
Okay.
So the goods could be manufactured. One of the categories is manufactured, assembly, stamping it, doing something to it, and then you ship it out. But it does also allow acquisition. So if you have a company that brings stuff in from out of state, but then ships it out of state within 175 days, it has to go out of state.
Got it.
Then that percentage of goods would also qualify under the statute as Freeport goods. We do, because Texas is an oil-producing state, petroleum byproducts are completely out of this process. They don't qualify.
Good.
And Mr. Bell, if I may, and the gentleman referred to Section 1J, 1JA number 2. The property is detained in the state for assembling, storing, manufacturing, processing, or fabricating purposes by the person who acquired or imported the property. So it does speak to your warehousing concept, Mr. Bell. I think that's what you referred to, manufacturing or warehousing. That was the question I had.
Good. Thank you.
I had a question/comment.
Yes, sir.
I really don't have any concerns, particularly with the grant funding. If you could go to that slide again. So I know we're having to take action. We're talking about taking action, but you're obviously not committing your EDC. You still have to vote on it, right?
Yes, sir.
So it's still pending a vote from the EDC.
Yes, sir, on this, Mr. White, and this is the direction I'm getting from my board president. And no, sir, we have not taken action on that because our board meeting got moved this month. We were going to be on the 12th. We'll now be on the 19th, and we'll take action at that time. But we've had internal discussions about this. My board's informed of this in executive session.
Okay, so how often do you recommend grants that don't get approved?
Say that again, sir.
So this is a recommended grant. I was asking how often do you have recommended grants that don't get approved?
That don't get approved? Mr. Macbeth, you want to talk to that one? Our percentage of non-approval? Fairly low.
Pretty low.
It's a pretty good bet then.
Every once in a while, incentive, they don't come through with the number of employees or things such as that.
Right.
Qualify with those
Okay.
pretty small grants.
Yeah, because we
So
have. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr.
So
White.
given the funding, I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's at any district I've been at, I would jump at the chance for this kind of offer. So kudos to you guys for coming up with this and offering
Well,
this.
it's been around for a long time, sir, and we're just now circling back around. I think it's kind of been bubbling a little bit and talked about Freeport somewhat, but until a major prospect shows up and says, hey, you need to really take a hard look at this, and in this case, there's 5 other sites they're looking at, or 5 sites they're looking at. We're the only one that doesn't have triple Freeport, and that's going to be important to them, I know, and it could be others as well. And once again, I'm going to reiterate, is that a done deal if you have triple Freeport? Absolutely not. I can't stand here and say, sure. I'm not going to tell you, oh yeah, it's a done deal, it's a slam dunk, every project that comes along will land it. No, I can't tell you that. It just gives us another tool, as we said, another tool in the toolbox as we do economic development work. Yes, sir.
Has Forney lost any businesses because they don't have triple Freeport that we know of?
Good question, Mr. Andrews. It does come up from time to time, but we never know because most of the prospects we deal with are code name. Almost every one of, other than Amazon was the only one that wasn't. But they're a code name, and you never know. What major prospects look for is a reason to knock you off the list. You're going to be knocked off for some reason. It's not a game of trying to win them over. You just want to stay in the game long enough because they're looking at a matrix, and if you don't meet a certain criteria or whatever, you're out. And many times we never hear from them again. We never know. Sometimes they'll tell you, like in this case, absolutely, they told me this is going to be a key component of us because of all our inventory that we have. We're looking at triple Freeport. I mean, they were very straightforward about that as I stood on that bus and presented.
So the 4 businesses that you guys have identified, those are within our taxing jurisdiction, not just the city's taxing jurisdiction, because we have different geographic boundaries.
Yes.
So, and is there any way to figure out if there are other businesses that could apply or could qualify?
Mr. Johnson, I talked to Mr. Chris Peace at the appraisal district, and I think your staff folks know Mr. Peace pretty well. He double checked that for me, and right now he showed nothing. All he showed was the 4. I asked him, I said, Chris, I know that's city and county, so that means they're inside the city, and I know your school district boundaries are much larger than that, and that's why I asked him to double check that, and he said, Warren, all I've got are those 4. That's what I have right now.
And there's really no way to check if there are some that be qualified and just haven't applied.
Same information.
So
Yeah,
there's just no way to figure that out.
And I don't know of any right now, Mr. Johnson. I'm trying to think about that on the edge that would be outside the city limits, but in the school district that may be a manufacturer that may be shipping product out of the state or a large warehouse distribution facility. I don't know of any. I can't think of any that would.
Okay. I mean, I can't either.
Yeah. Now, is there a one-off out there somewhere we don't know about? There may be. I mean, there's industrial buildings in Tauti and other places. There may be somebody out there that we don't know that may take advantage. But
So, can I ask another question?
Sure.
So the Freeport, is it an all or nothing? I mean, if you do Freeport, you do it for everybody that applies for it, and you don't do it on an individual basis.
Correct. And so we actually looked into contingency situations, things like that. It's very black or white. And we had Purdue Brandon explore that very detailed, even down to the South Texas area, I think. And once you adopt, that it is a blanket adoption. Yes, sir.
For all the companies. You can't pick and choose which companies you want to apply to.
right. And sir, but the companies still have to apply to the appraisal district. They have to apply to the appraisal district, prove up their Freeport exemption through the appraisal district, through Mr. Peace's office, to get that exemption. They still have that application process they still have to go through.
And there's no minimum percentage that a business has to meet in terms of the amount of goods they ship out of state? No.
And then you said it's based on the percentage of the previous year?
Yes.
So they could grow their revenue exponentially from one year to the next and take advantage of the percentage from the year previous?
Yes, there's no control over that. The control as to the percentage of Freeport goods is purely in the hands of the taxpayer, not the tax.
Say that again?
The decision as to what percentage is a business decision, and that's made by the taxpayer, not by the district. So the taxpayer could decide to ship, say they did 50% this year, they could decide next year to send 90% or 12%. But that's based on their own business model and their own way of doing business.
Right, correct.
So I can't give you a set number there's no way to give you a set number from year to year.
Right, and we talked to, I think John talked directly to Chris as well, just about that number, and he wanted us to make sure it's not necessarily 83 every year, if that makes sense. It could fall, it could rise a little bit, and a lot of it's going to be based on what they report.
Correct. And in the project that we showed you, sir, the project name we're talking about, that company is about 60-40, non-Freeport 60, and Freeport about 40 is where they're at right now, currently.
So we haven't seen any numbers on this Fireball, right? It's not calculated in any of these numbers we've seen.
Yes,
Yes.
$600,000 worth of tax and 1.8 million one time before, because just that lag happens too with a chapter 42. We'd get to 1.8 million the first year, and then you have the equalization of wealth the next year. But going forward, you'd still get to M&O, the INS portion, which is estimated 600 grand. Is that what I saw?
400, 600 grand.
340 to
340
600, it depends, yeah.
So I guess I'm just lost in, it's a big decision to come in. And
Yes, sir. I understand, sir.
It's in perpetuity and all this kind of stuff.
Yes, sir.
We're giving up for. So we're looking at one set of numbers that's actuals, and we're looking at another set of numbers that is maybe, we got a 20% chance of it happening. So we know if we do this tonight, we're losing $83,000 a year.
Well,
And
sir,
then
I would.
what we're hoping is we get a 20% chance. that we
Mr.
can
Andrews,
potentially get
on the
1.8.
83,000 that's current right now, and like Dr. Terry said, that number may fluctuate from year to year, may go up or down a little bit, but currently it's about 83,000. I'm going to take it to my board later this month to make you whole of that 83,000 for 3 years in a row through an economic development grant through our office, as I understand from Dr. Terry. And once again, man, thank goodness. John Chase, thank you for running those numbers on school finance. Dr. Terry says that'll buy you like 7 years.
Yes.
With the
Yeah,
evaluation and all that and the adjustments, and I don't understand all that, but you get about 7 years coverage out of that, right?
Right,
For lack of a better
correct. So
term.
we'll wash the first year, Mr. Andrews, and then we will equalize on the M&O side and have a liability of about $27,000 annually. That if you take the 83 multiplied times 2, divide that by 27, that'll give us over 6 years of additional wash. I think that was the terminology there.
Yes, sir.
That the EDC would support.
And maybe I'm misunderstanding and maybe I'm out of line here, but you could also go to Project Fireball as an EDC and offer them the same grant, 3 years, $83,000 to convince them to come here. And then we know that they have it here, that we know we make the $1.8 million.
No, sir, because the amount of Freeport value there for them is huge. It dwarfs that 83.
Okay.
It
It's
dwarfs
40
the 83,000.
It's 40% of the 1.8 million.
Yeah.
You're gonna lose that, but they're not coming here if you don't grant it.
Right. So
But
they
you're
have, from
not-
what I'm sorry, Mr. Bell, as I understand, they have over 50 million, this company has over 50 million in Freeport inventory. And much more than that in non-Freeport, plus equipment, building, machinery, all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the
They're-
exemption only applies to the inventory. They're
Correct.
looking at the exemption on the building or the.
No, sir,
equipment.
no, sir, no, sir.
Correct.
We're just
Only
talking
the
about
outstated.
goods that go out of the state of Texas in 175 days.
So correct me if I'm wrong, Warren, but I think we were looking at a total asset of about 170, 175 million.
It's
About
yeah,
55
land,
of
build,
that would
yeah,
be
land,
Freeport.
building, equipment.
And so
all,
we're
yeah.
looking at about $120 million in additional
Right.
value.
On this particular prospect here.
Yes, correct.
I'll just weigh in here. Here's my concern. I understand you got a 1 in 5 chance, but
Yes, sir.
you're 1 of 5 that don't have it.
Yes, sir.
So, as a CEO, you're out. Okay? The second thing.
20 years
is-
of doing this economic development stuff, Mr. Bell, I've heard that before from people saying, you're out. I've heard it before.
I'm just telling you.
I know it's
That's
that,
just
I
the
know,
way
sir.
it works.
It happens that way.
The second piece to that, if you're 1 of 5, and I get a letter that says, okay, well, if you pull the trigger on a or $200 million deal, we'll come back and grant this. Well, now that's just the word of a governmental entity that you got no guarantee what 7 people are gonna do tomorrow. You're out. So I guess my concern here is I don't want us to be an impediment for an opportunity of this project to come to Forney. Is it a risk? You know, absolutely. You know, is there a risk that the taxes that these people are exempting can grow just as much as you can have a recession in another year and it could go down, correct? And so, I mean, that it's a moving target. However, if monetarily we've got 7 years to be made whole from a revenue standpoint, the risk is years 8, 9, and 10. Well, you know, what you're asking for is all the pressure, Warren, because the EDC and the city got to close the deal.
Yes, sir.
If you get the opportunity here, and we appreciate the offer of 7 years to be made whole, but you got 7 years to close the deal. I would concur with Dr. Terry. You know, we need another house or another apartment in this town, like we need a hole in our head. You know, and so, I mean, because, you know, I can show you the numbers and we can talk about it till the cows come home. You can't build a school for the taxation you get on a home and an apartment. It just doesn't work financially. You know, where we're at with our debt today is because of the expansive growth of 2000 and the fact that we built 7 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school. We're still paying for that debt. It's 30 and 40-year debt. So until we get the capacity in that 50-cent test, you know, our ability to go forward with that's limited. It's capped by the state. However, you take an opportunity, and at least what I read, and you can qualify this, the retail's not coming.
It's a different
on the
ballgame,
north
sir.
side.
It's a different ballgame.
The retail's not coming to the bridge to nowhere. It's still a bridge to nowhere. And it's going to be one based on what I read, and if I'm wrong, somebody correct me. But this is what I see. If they create an office warehouse opportunity in Forney, when you get one facility that's 1.2 million square feet, the next one comes, and the next one comes. And you see that all up and down the 635 corridor. So, once again, you know, is it a risk? Yes. Terrell's done it, Mesquite's done it, Rockwall's done it. At any time you pull this trigger, you're going to lose some revenue in the hopes you're gaining the future. But I'm just telling you as a CEO, and I got 5 options. If you don't have it, you're out. And number 2, if you just give me a letter that I've got to depend on some political subdivision to make a future decision, and I'm spending $200 million, you're out. I mean, that just doesn't make any sense. And so, you know, certainly I would sit here and think I would have to concur with Mike White, who is a CFO that now employed by Highland Park, but I'm not going to substitute my judgment for a CFO in the school business, but it certainly makes sense to me, and I appreciate your comments, Mike. So I guess at this point, you know, I'd ask, you know, Susie, you know, you to make a recommendation. You're the current superintendent, and then Dr. Terry, you're who this board's chosen as a successor. So, you know, this is your deal to deal with if Warren can't close the deal. And once again, this goes back to the Forney EDC and the city of Forney. You know, I don't want us to be an impediment, but you're asking us to put a huge amount of pressure on you, that if we give you this opportunity, you got to close some deals in the next 7 years.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Right? We're aware of that, sir. Yes,
All
sir.
right.
And that's one reason when I visited with Dr. Terry.
Yes, sir.
About the $83,000 we're talking about that's existing Freeport.
Yes,
if
sir.
you enacted that tonight, that would be a liability to you. That's why my board of directors is willing to take that under advisement on the 19th.
Sure.
And I feel very strongly about that we'll get that done and make that coverage for you for 3 years at $83,000, which covers you for 7 or whatever it is.
Right, and I would agree with Christopher. I mean, that's another risk, right, Christopher? When we're going to make a decision potentially that we got to take the risk on your political subdivision.
Yes, sir.
But I think in a spirit of us all working together, I mean, you know, your president's here, you got a city councilman here, you know, I think they followed your lead, and you've been a good leader, so I think, I'm confident that you can get that deal closed.
Thank you,
That's
sir.
internal.
We've had,
So-
as I said, we've had some discussion on this in
Yes, sir.
executive session. We've not taken any action in open session, because we need to get in front of this body here
I understand.
and have this discussion in open session with you,
Well, it's a chicken
and in
and
front of
egg.
the public as well.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's a chicken and egg, you know, which comes first,
Mm-hmm.
okay? You know, it's also a bacon and egg breakfast. The chicken's involved, but the pig's committed.
Yes,
And
sir.
you're asking
Yes, sir.
us to be committed, and I get it, all right? So with that,
Can
you know.
I ask one more
Yes, sir.
question? Is there a timeline? I mean, I'd rather be the chicken than the pig, so. I mean, we're meeting April 9th now, we meet again on the 23rd, meet again on the 14th or whatever. What's the driver with this fireball or whatever?
I know, sir, from speaking with CBRE today, the site consultant team, I'm going to text her when this meeting is over and let her know where we're at. She has another meeting in front of the prospect tomorrow, so it is moving fairly rapidly, but I'm not here tonight to tell you, oh, I gotta have an answer tonight. I would love to have that answer tonight, but if that answer is not forthcoming, if it can be forthcoming before the end of this month, I could probably make that work. If it's gonna take longer than that, it's not gonna work, because we've held them off a little bit here on this issue, trying to get some answers to the company and to the site consultant. But yeah, if we could get an answer tonight, fantastic. If not, if you're not comfortable with that, if I've got to come back, and Dr. Terry, I saw something earlier, I think there's some other meetings coming up that you
April
guys, and I'm
23rd.
sure you have the same rules we have, 72 hours posting. So if it's not comfortable tonight, we can't get there, if we can come back, if we have to come back, you know, and I can get some comfort level on that and share that with CBRE, and after this meeting, I'm amenable to that. But anything later than, and I'm not just saying that to put pressure on you, anything later than within the next 2 or 3 weeks is going to be too late. This project will move on.
Well, Ms. McWilliams, what's your thoughts?
Well, I want to be honest about this. When I was first approached with this, I talked to our attorneys, and my first thought was, no, we're not doing that. But the more we delved into it, the more we ran the numbers, the more we thought about it, I began to think differently. I think it boils down to industry over rooftops is one of the main things, and we have done a really good job of bringing in rooftops. But we have said as a board that, you know, we need the industry. We need the tax value that would greatly benefit our school district, more than if they filled that whole entire gateway area with rooftops, or apartments, either one, yes. So I think that it's sort of kind of like you have to spend some money to make some money. I think that the loss of the taxable, also, there's certain requirements that these companies have to meet in order to be eligible for it. And if they don't meet those, then they don't get it. And so that narrows the playing field just a little bit, because, am I right on that? They've got to meet certain things to be eligible for it. So I think that the prospect of the industry coming to us overshadows the amount of money we might lose.
Thank you. Dr. Terry?
Yes, sir, I concur with Ms. McWilliams. I think we have a choice to make, whether we want to really partner together to move forward as more than a bedroom community. And we are on 2 great corridors, and we have some opportunities here that I think that we are competing against Mesquite, Rockwall, Terrell, DISD, Balch Springs, all of our surrounding districts. And so we have a philosophical decision to make from a community standpoint that to give us an opportunity moving forward with industry, if that's the route we decide we want to go. I think that this is something that we can, as Ms. McWilliams said, spend a little bit now, that actually they would give us a cushion on, hopefully, for the next 7 years, to hopefully have see the fruits of the labor there after those 7 years. And what we hope to see is that the small amount of inventory that is shipped out that we see, that 40%, would be eaten up by things like land, equipment, and inventory that does stay within the state. And this example that we see, I think, with Project Fireball may be something that would be very similar to other projects that may be approaching Forney. $120 million worth of taxable goods, where we're only about $55 million with those that would be exempted. So I think, again, Mr. Bell, I support Ms. McWilliams and her thoughts that this is an opportunity for us to make a decision as a community, partner with our city, and give them some tools in their tool belt.
Okay. And I think you're exactly correct, Dr. Terry. I mean, it's a philosophical decision. And I mean, that's why we've debated it. It's why you've got the EDC and the attorneys and the CFO. We don't make very many of those. Whether or not we have a 5th and 6th grade intermediate campus, or we have uniforms, or we have neighborhood schools, I mean, it's philosophical. And so that's always difficult. But I think it appears to me time is of the essence, and I appreciate the EDC's offer to give us some room here financially, and certainly the last thing I would say is, and having this conversation, I have the same concerns. Can you make a motion to approve this and it be contingent upon you closing the deal, contingent upon the EDC granting the grant? And the answer I heard was no. You can't make a motion here tonight contingent. So, I mean, every now and then we just got to just skate out there on a little bit over our skis and make the best decision we possibly can make. So, are there any other questions before I call the question? Any other comments? Hearing none, at this time, the chair would entertain a motion considering the granting of an exemption of a value under tax code 11.251.
So moved.
A motion, Ms. Green, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. White. I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Kettleman. Thank you, John and Dr. Terry. Moving on to item B is 11B, consideration possible approval of an interlocal agreement with the City of Forney and the Forney EDC regarding parking lot at Forney Academic Center. This time, the chair would recognize Dr. Justin Terry, Deputy Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. I would like to bring back to you an item that we actually had discussed as a report last month, and that was the parking lot at our Forney Academic Center. What you had in your board book was a site map. It's a little more developed than what you had seen before, but I just want to quickly review what has been in discussion. And so as you look at this map here, what I'd point out to you is really this area over near Trinity Street, and this currently is parking lot. And so what we currently have right now is a drive that ends right around this section, right around this area here. And so as we approach this, we really have two things that we focus on from a site planning standpoint. First and foremost, the safety and security of our children. And second, transportation. And so what you see here is a transportation plan that allows for parent pickup over here. You can follow my cursor, that would go in and out over towards Church Street. However, our bus parking really has a choice right now of sealing off this area here, this parking lot, that would allow for entrance of a bus, drop off, pickup, and exit of a bus. That would, in a sense, shut down this shared parking lot that we have currently open to a lot of our patrons. It's right across from the new Eno's Pizza, Air Engineering, the county sub courthouse. There's a lot of traffic over in this area, if that makes sense, and this parking lot stays full right now. And so we started working on this idea of how is it that we could continue to partner for that area. And this is the model that we presented to you. This was the option of still securing this area with security gates for our children and making sure this area is safe, that would follow this line of the arrow that you can see, but also allowing our bus traffic not to have to utilize this entire parking lot, but to extend that area in this gray right here with a parking lot or a parking drive extension that would allow bus exit over to Elm Street. And so this was the model that we showed to you. You gave good feedback to this option. We've also shared this with City Council, and so what we are really bringing you tonight is a interlocal agreement that would be presented to you tonight for approval that we would then present to the EDC and City Council, hopefully. Within this interlocal agreement were a few items. First off, this extension, this standard bus loop would not cost the district any funds, just to go ahead and circle and maintain that. But to continue to allow this parking over here, we would have to invest in this extension of the drive and some of these additional gates and things like that. Therefore, what we've talked to the EDC about is a possible grant funding for those improvements. That was written into the interlocal agreement that you should have seen. One of the concerns as we started these discussions was if I invest from the economic development standpoint $150,000, what are the assurances that we will still maintain that parking as a city? And so what we did write into this that I wanted to point out were a few items. First, the city would have the first right of refusal in case we ever did decide to sell that property. We also discussed this idea of even with that first right of refusal, then upon sale of the property, if the city chose not to purchase that land, that we would reimburse for all capital improvements that had been approved prior by the school board. So those are a few of the kind of updates to some of the discussions we've had as a board. The site plan itself really has not changed much. It is still very similar. We are working still with the city to see, this is just an example drawing. If they wanted to extend, for example, some concrete into that grassy area right now, they would actually be able to add parking. So our civil engineers are working with the city right now to kind of talk through what it is that they'd like to see. But this site plan here actually increases the parking capacity from what the city would have access to right now. So entertain any questions that you might have about the MOU. What we are proposing tonight is adoption of the MOU as a school board to then present to the EDC board and City Council.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Terry. Any questions concerning the MOU and the site plan?
I've got several.
Yes, sir.
It's all right, Mr. Bell. On the letter here, it talks about the grant's estimated $150,000 that we would be bid as an alternate to our FAC package that's out right now?
Yes, sir.
Now, is that the same alternates that's identified on the plans?
Yes, sir. There are, we've actually had small estimates that Gallagher has produced, and they were estimating at about $150,000. We will actually put that out to bid in May as an alternate with the extension of the drive. Also included in that are 2 electrical gates here and here, as well as security fencing that I think they've labeled as decorative security fencing. And then even the restriping of this lot based on what the city said that they would like to have.
So that I guess that's the basis of the question. We've talked about what's in gray here, highlighted in gray, that extension of the drive.
Yes, sir.
And then the second gate down here facing the tax office over there, those
Yes.
are not included or listed right now as the alternate. So are
They-
those included
yes.
in the $150,000 estimate right now?
Yes, sir. What you see here, everything with exception to this lot right here would be included in that $150,000 estimate.
So are we approving the intermodal agreement based on this drawing, or is this drawing going to be revised? Because this is not, I guess that's not what's shown here.
So this right here is just an example I wanted to show you of an option to extend out the parking area that we've actually presented to the city. Another option that is the exact same without this area built in. And so that interlocal agreement then would be pertaining to what has been presented to the city from a code standpoint.
So the $150,000 estimate that Galler's put together is for the top right-hand parking. I don't know how many spots that is. I counted the whole amount, but that whole the striping that's associated with that,
Striping, right? I think about $20,000 for striping.
it would include all the fencing around that.
It would include the fencing from here all the way to, this is a gate, I'm sorry, right here is a gate, electronic gate that allows for staging for our buses, and then gate or fencing from here all the way down, another gate all the way down to here and over to our existing fence, as well as the drive extension. 2 gates, fence, and a drive extension with restriping. What is written, I think, in the interlocal agreement is generic titles of each of those, and it's pending proposal to the EDC for funding until we get our finalized bids back from Gallagher.
Yeah, I think what's in the agreement, it matches what we're saying. It just doesn't match the drawing.
Correct, yes, this is
Based
an
on what's
updated
labeled as
drawing that
alternate.
Gallagher, or I'm sorry, Huckabee has just turned in. The city had asked to show maximized parking, and so that's what you see right here. It's possible I could pull up a previous, it's not a site plan, but it's the one that you've had in your board packet.
All I wanted to make sure we weren't agreeing to what was labeled as alternate 1 on this plan.
Correct, yes.
And we're not agreeing to that.
It is, no, you would, if they were going to propose improving this through additional cement, they'd have to come back and propose, according to the MOU, they would have to come back and propose the improvements on top of the standard improvements that we've got written in currently. And you would have to adopt any improvement, capital improvements as a board.
Comment, there's not a number, there's not a $150,000 number in this MOU, correct? So, I mean, at the end of the day, it depends on, it'll just provide sufficient information regarding the improvements, and then it's their full funding of what the scope of work is.
Yes, sir.
And
So as
then-
soon as Gallagher puts those on the streets, we'd have a little bit more information.
And I'm no lawyer, so I won't substitute my judgment from one sitting down there with a doctorate of jurisprudence, but the way I understood this is if they did this alternate number 1 that Christopher was talking about, and we approved that, then we'd have to reimburse them this money plus the grant value.
If we sell it,
Correct? That way they're flush. So whatever they spent, based on this MOUs, whatever they spent, as long as they got pre-approval of that additional parking area by that extension, we would just make them whole in the event we sold it and they refused their first right of refusal to purchase. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
I think there was a qualification if they terminated or go back, but.
That's right.
Now,
That's right.
maintenance of what's outside our fence is the city's, not the school district's per this MOU, right?
Correct. So since the school district would really not be utilizing that more than just a community patron or through our plans, we felt that the maintenance should be done by the city as well, and that's written in a local agreement. Yes,
And I mean, that's really not that much unless there's a pothole or you need to stripe it again in a decade, right?
Right.
Who gets to enforce that? Do we, since it's our property?
That's my understanding, yes. You as a board still own the property and would have control over that property in case at any point in time we needed to disband this agreement. We have, I think, 60 days notification.
Do you know how many linear feet it is to that fence? Can you figure that out? Looks like it's getting close to that 300 foot we're required to have by the Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission, I think. Isn't it? That'd help that. Segregate those kids.
That's one of the reasons we did want to promote a fence and security there. We have found patrons smoking on our grounds, as well as we do have alcohol sales at that corner. So we wanted to make sure and seal that.
The Texas Alcohol Beverage Commission recommends we maintain 300 feet from our campus to, the cell, the curb, door to door, curb to curb. And actually, it's door to curb, which our fence would then become our boundary, even though we own the property. So you're getting pretty close to 300 feet. As it is right now, our boundary is the curb. So you're the width of the street and the sidewalk from Enos. And I mean, that's
Perhaps, I'm not sure legally that it would change our boundary.
right, but
Because we still own it.
right, but at least we have a fence separating our kiddos and patrons, and so. And I mean, it's just a recommendation, Mr. Andrews. All we can do is ask, and and we need to ask. We have as trustees, we have a duty, and so anyway, I just think it'd help. Therefore.
Mr. Bell, if I may, sir, if I may. Mr. Andrews, comment you made earlier, it wasn't for lack of trying by me as executive director at the EDC, because I pressured Dr. Terry. I tried to buy that lot out there like 3 times, and he would not sell it to me. He said, Warren, we want to keep it all in one piece. So that's kind of how the MOU got drafted, with the opportunity for us at the EDC to have a right of first refusal if you ever were to sell the property. But as I want to say, not for lack of trying by me, because I was trying pretty hard for us to just slice that corner off and get the whole thing at one time. But it just made better sense for him, and I understand that. Keep it all as one piece, keep it all together.
Yeah, I think it's a great with us compromise. I just want to make sure I know what we're signing up for.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
And we don't have the drawing yet. It'll be attached to that.
Yeah, we have not received the finalized site plan. We just met the last Tuesday, I think, with the city and they are still in discussion as to would they like, I think their last request was, would they like to add that additional sidewalk or a paved area for additional parking? And so they requested our city engineers begin to kind of draw out how to maximize that parking for civil engineers, and that's what you see here. And so what we have put into the MOU at this time, or the interlocal agreement at this time, is generic based on the fact that they are still trying to decide from a city standpoint what it is that they would like us to improve. Is that fair to say?
I think it goes back to what Mr. Bell said. There's no dollar value associated in the MOU now. So as long as they will fund whatever they want to put over there,
that's right.
Yeah, we're cool with that. I just want to make sure we're not signing up to a document that doesn't match what we've talked about.
Right, and I would, and you're spot on. But at the end of the day, whatever we decide to do, if you decide affirmatively to move forward, you need to do so in a matter of giving the superintendent the latitude to finish the negotiations of exactly what you're talking about. The money, this is going to go back to the city if we so choose to do that tonight, and I'm sure it's going to be tweaked by the EDC and the city, and all we're doing is just throwing out the olive branch and try to get the party started. So, with that said,
we're being great team members tonight.
Absolutely.
And we're there too, Mr. I mean, we want to get some resolution here. I had and I won't name a name, but had a downtown business owner stop me one day during the renovation of downtown. Warren, can I park over there? I said, well, that's not my property. That's FISD property. Well, can I park over there? I said, you can park wherever you want to. I'm not the parking police. Well, I'm going to park over there. I said, you do what suits you best, but you need to know that is not city property. That is FISD property. Well, I've been parking there for a long time. It was a circular argument. I'm like, I can't tell you yes or no, but this way we can get that resolution that yes, we do have some parking downtown, some additional parking for those patrons downtown. And I know Enos has been has been following this very closely, because I know they're busting, especially nights and weekends over there. So that's an opportunity for us, as well as the EDC. As we grow and look, we're going to look for other opportunities downtown too. But where can we find another little parking area that may work for us? So yeah, it is an issue downtown for sure as we're continuing to grow.
And if you look on this drawing, it's in the light gray, you know, that's that additional parking behind the sub courthouse. So the way you've got it fenced off or the way it's drawn, that still keeps that available too, back there. So
Yes, sir. So
it's not just, this
Yes.
down
referring to
here
this area here.
and farther down.
Yes, so
Right
this
right
is our
there,
property
yeah.
line, and
Got
Skeet
it.
has agreed as well to kind of continue to
Cool.
maintain that area.
Any other questions? Susie, you got a,
Yeah,
Ms.
I
McWilliams,
just
you got a
wanna-
recommendation?
I just want to summarize. So I just want to remind everybody that we're moving our babies over there. Our pre-K early childhood center is going to be over there, and we are putting up a fence because safety is our number one concern. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, we want to be good partners with our city, and we know that the city needs that parking. I mean, we eat at Eno's too. So, in an effort to be a good partner with the city, we ask our attorney to draw up this interlocal agreement. And so we also went to the city and presented at a city council meeting to just let them know kind of what we were thinking. So now we've drawn up the interlocal agreement. You've read it, you've taken a look at it, and I would like to have your permission to go forward to offer the interlocal agreement to the city, let them take a look at it, and give me the latitude to go ahead and negotiate the interlocal agreement.
Okay, any questions, that recommendation? If not, the chair would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Andrews, got a motion, Mr. Andrews, there's a second?
Second.
Second. All right, Mr. Regan. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, board
Thank
members.
you.
Thank
y'all.
you.
Item C is consideration and approval of purchase of the indulgence software. Edusence, not indulgence, I'm sorry. I've been indulged for the last 2.5 hours. Anyway, so with that said, whatever kind of software it is, at this time, the chair would entertain Ms. Kimberly Morsack, Chief of Information and Innovation Services, and this should prove to be entertaining.
I will be as brief as possible.
Thank you.
Yes, I want just very briefly want to talk to you about a new software suite we'd like to consider purchasing called Edugence. We are actually working with a group by the name of MockB, and it's really a partnership. Robin Pierce has been working with all the departments to develop a dashboard to really help provide transparency for the district. You know, that's one of our ultimate goals. So right now, we have all the tools we need to help kids be successful, but it takes a lot of time to get the data we need. And we don't currently have a way for parents to see everything they need to see about their child easily. They can get to most things, but it's cumbersome for them. And the last thing we want is to hinder them from having that information. So what we'd like to do is purchase it is a data warehouse and a set of dashboards that are completely customizable that will take all of our data and put it in one place. So we're talking about everything from assessments to curriculum instructional resources. Our teacher evaluations will be housed here. Our focus time program at the high schools and the middle schools will be able to have flexible scheduling through this program. Pretty much anything we need, it would be in one place. And it has really two components. One is a 360-degree teacher view, which will allow us to look at their evaluation and tie it to their professional development. So we could put all of our professional learning opportunities in this program, and as teachers go through the year, if they're struggling in an area, it will actually recommend professional learning opportunities for them. On the other side, we have a 360-degree view of our students. And so this is going to take our assessment, our instruction, our curriculum, and put it all together and give us tools we can use to provide intervention. I'm going to show you just a few quick dashboards. These are mock-ups from Mock B. They do work with some other school districts, but they're really kind of partnering with us to do some really exciting things that are a little bit different. You know, we like to do that here. So this would be a dashboard that a principal or you guys would potentially have. And it would show our enrollment. You could every day look on it and it would show you in real time our current enrollment per campus at the district level. It would show the average daily attendance. Obviously, that's a very important thing for us in Forney. Discipline, how we're doing on our common assessments, how we're doing on STAR. Very easy to use dashboard for you to just look at graphics to kind of keep up with the day-to-day of the school district. In addition, there would be both student and parent dashboards. And these are really focused for those individuals. So it would have graduation plans, discipline, attendance, academic performance, and also allow us to use it for goal setting. So students could goal set and track their progress through this dashboard, and parents would be able to see that as well. This is an attendance analytics. So it shows what kids are present, excused, unexcused absences, tardies, students who left early during the school day, and it kind of tracks through the month where our highs and lows are. So if we have a real big spike, we can start digging and see what's going on with that. This is a example of a teacher dashboard. And so it shows campus reports just at a glance, all the way down to student reports, where they can click on a student and see everything about them. They can go in and look at any assessment we give, whether that be a common unit assessment, a benchmark, a MAP test, which we do through grade 8, the STAR test, and give them how that student is doing per each SE. And then it will take that and give them shootout analytics and then evaluate that for them, predict college readiness, show how if kids are on track to be successful in college and in the future. And then we'll also provide them real progress monitoring and help group their students for intervention. So it is a complete data warehouse suite that will take every piece of data we have, put it in one spot. It will look at discipline data that Rick can use to make sure that we're taking care of business the way we need to with our students in the classroom. I think we're going to be able to look at some cafeteria stuff and transportation stuff for John and Rick to help make those more efficient. Pretty much anything we can put into the computer, it can spit out really nice reports that people can use to make the best decision for our kids and to provide transparency to our parents. So as I said, Robin has been working on this. I know enough to get myself in trouble. So I'm going to go ahead and open this for questions, but I may have to bring her up to answer them because I don't want to give you the wrong answer. Oh, I will tell you this part. I probably need to tell you how much it costs. As you saw in your board book, it is $181,000 for 3 years. That is going to be covered 90% by the instructional materials allotment, which is our IMA funds. So we've been given approval to cover 90% of that through IMA. And that's for a 3-year purchase of the software and the training.
Good. Questions?
So, if I recall correctly, did we go to the student side of Skyward?
Yes,
Like
sir. We're on the
year
student side
ago?
of Skyward and the business side of Teams.
Does this replace that?
No, sir. It is not a student information system. What it does is it will pull all the data from both Teams and Skyward and make it a whole lot easier to analyze, read. You know, I think you're familiar with Skyward and Teams. They're both a little tedious in pulling reports. It makes it much, much easier to do that.
So,
But a teacher still has to do everything in Skyward, and then they use this to
So
a
it
dashboard
will-
of sorts.
Yes and no. So right now, for instance, in our focus time, our teachers have to go in and take attendance in Skyward. We can set attendance up through this program if we choose to do so. And it will feed back into Skyward. I'm not really ready to do that yet. Pushing stuff back into an SIS can get a little tricky. So they would still have to take attendance in Skyward. Most of our teachers actually do their grading in Canvas, which automatically pushes into Skyward. So they still would have to log into Skyward for attendance and do their grades somewhere. That is correct. But
Okay.
this would provide them with all the data analysis that they don't necessarily have right now. So it would pull everything from Eduphoria, which we're currently using for some of our data analysis, all their map testing. They wouldn't have to go to all those different places to get the information. Their special education information would be there, RTI, ESL, any information on that student would be in one location for them to see.
Okay, and the parent portal in Canvas, does this replace some of those other things?
So we have found that our parents are, we have many of them who go into Canvas, but once again, that shows one portion of what's happening with their student. They can go into Skyward and see more information. This would take all that and put it in one place, and this would become the one-stop shop for parents. Whole lot easier for them to see everything. Right now, if they want to find how their child did on a STAR test, they can get that information, but it's pretty tedious and they have to dig really hard for it. This would just be right there on their dashboard.
So, number one, it's more transparency for the parents.
Yes, sir. Parents and teachers, and you.
And it's easier to access.
Yes, sir.
And it sounds like there's no additional data input. So
That is
all the data is going to be imported into this software.
Yes, sir. It'll do it not only
Just for analytical
Yes, sir.
purposes in a dashboard. So,
And I think on the instructional side, it will allow teachers to group students and provide intervention in a very quick, timely manner, much easier than they can right now. You know, it's difficult whenever you have 30 kids in a classroom and they have different levels of ability. So it will be able to, in real time, take all their data in one place and provide them with the tools they need to group the students and intervene effectively and efficiently.
any other questions?
I've got one.
Yes,
I know
sir.
I stand between us and our first recess, but the one-time outlay, the 181,000.
Yes, sir.
For 3 years. Is
Yes,
that
sir.
a one-time fee? Does that come with all the technical support and customization and stuff we want? There's not any add-on fees as we go through the 3 years?
That is correct on the main portion. There is the ESL portion and the RTI portion is separate. It goes through Region 10. Those are different modules that they already have. I think it's $7,000 on that end. This is for them to develop, customize, build everything we need, train, all of that.
And when we got problems, we call them up and they
Yes, sir.
help us out?
Very, and it's a very small company, but they're very, very quick to respond. Dr. Cherry reminded me, I don't know if I mentioned this, but this does replace Eduphoria, which we currently use for data management, some curriculum, but it's not really very good at curriculum storage. This should replace that, and for teacher appraisals. So all of that will be done through this system. It does replace that system.
Mr. McWilliams, you got a recommendation?
Yes, I want to point out too that we get instructional materials allotments, we call it IMA funds, from the state every year to purchase instructional materials, and this does qualify, so we could use some of our instructional material funds to pay for this and would offset it out of our local budget. So, yes, and also it's just a matter, you know, the more we advance, the more analytical information we need, our students need it, our teachers need it, and like Kim said, so that we can continually monitor what our students are mastering and what they aren't, and regroup them. This puts it at their fingertips. So I think it's a great purchase. I'm looking forward to seeing what the district does with it, and I would like to ask the board to approve the purchase of it.
Okay, any questions concerning that recommendation? Not.
Have to pay all of this up front?
Do you have
Yes,
to-
yeah,
I'm sorry.
it is paid for up front. Yes, ma'am. But
Yeah.
90% of it is covered through the instructional materials allotment, which we have
That's it.
to cover that.
Any other questions? Hearing none at this time, Chair, entertain a motion.
Move that we approve the purchase.
Mr. Johnson makes a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Andrews. I got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Before we go into executive session, I just want to commend the board we did a couple of things here that are philosophical, and we don't get that opportunity very often, but I want to commend you for your leadership. Number one, to push the district forward, for us to partner with the city, and certainly partner with the EDC to try to help with the economic development as our attorney mentioned earlier, we don't get that opportunity very often either. So that was great that you guys chose to take advantage of that. I want to thank my information, Elizabeth and Bruce, for your presentation. You know, certainly we needed the background of our legal counsel before we start making decisions that cost us money. Thank you, John, for your work putting this stuff together. Susie, you and Dr. Terry to get us the information. Glad to have Jodan Macbeth, our EDC chair, in the audience. So your executive director made a lot of commitments here tonight that I was glad to see you're going to stand up and put his feet to the fire. So absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I'm proud of that. As well as Mr. Councilman, Mr. Myers, thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate your support and your service to the city of Forney. So thank you. So with all that said, thanks again for the board, for everyone's leadership. Moving on to item 12, executive session. We're going into item A, deliberation regarding employment of professional contract personnel pursuant to Texas Government Code 551074 personnel matters. Item B, deliberation regarding reemployment of professional contract personnel pursuant to Texas Government Code 551074 personnel matters. Item C, deliberation regarding proposed non-renewal of professional contract personnel pursuant to Texas Government Code 551074 personnel matters. And D, deliberation regarding superintendent's quarterly evaluation pursuant to Texas Government Code 551074 personnel matters. It is now 9:23 p.m. and we're going to adjourn into executive session.